The weather is truly terrible, and it's pouring rain. Our protagonist works in a bookstore, and is thinking that he probably won't get any customers today because of the weather. But what if someone forgot their umbrella? They might need to find a place to stay while the rain passes. By offering them a warm place and being kind, they might end up buying a few books as well. Now we see a mysterious woman on the street, standing under the heavy rain, fighting alone and defeating several thugs. Although she manages to beat them all, she is injured and realizes she needs a place to hide, while her self-healing takes care of her wounds. She comes across our protagonist's bookstore, the only one still open in such terrible weather. She isn't sure whether it's a trap or fate allowing her to enter and hide while she recovers. When she enters the bookstore, the protagonist greets her warmly, praising her appearance and her bravery for being outside in such horrible weather. In his mind, he's already planning what kind of books she might need and what approach to take to sell her as many books as possible. He offers her a towel and turns on the heater, which immediately makes her suspicious, since bookstores usually aren't that well equipped. She begins to wonder whether he belongs to an enemy faction, because he definitely doesn't give off the usual bookstore clerk vibe. He starts talking about books, which confuses her even more, as she can't tell whether he's genuinely friendly or an enemy in disguise. She reads his body language and realizes he's using psychological tricks, though she still doesn't understand why. He offers her a seat and a hot drink, and she tells him she was betrayed. They both have different thoughts. She's still trying to figure out whether he's an enemy, while he's trying to understand her situation in order to sell her books. After she mentions the betrayal, he tries to encourage her, saying that maybe she should learn something positive from the experience and learn to better understand people. She says he's right, but that she has already lost so much that she can only see the ugly side of humanity. He gives her another piece of advice, telling her that in the future she shouldn't feel remorse for people who have already hurt her, even if they were once very close to her. This makes her even more suspicious of him, but she continues the conversation and asks what else she should do. He tells her to take revenge, to show no mercy to those who hurt her. In his mind, he's still thinking about bookselling strategies, but she's shocked by his answer and says she isn't mentally prepared to do something so evil. Suddenly, he says, "Maybe you should buy this book to learn more." She's even more surprised and confused, unable to understand why he's suddenly recommending a book, though in reality he's just trying to sell it because it's good for business. She agrees to buy the book, and he hands her a library card to fill out. When he sees her name, he realizes she's the only daughter of a wealthy tycoon and sees another huge business opportunity to sell her more books in the future. As she leaves, he gives her an umbrella, and she tells him that maybe they could get to know each other a little better. That's when he realizes his sales strategy might have been mistaken for flirting, but he decides to go along with it and tells her his name, Lin. As they part ways, she continues to suspect him, while he's simply happy to have sold a book and made a good deal. Walking down the rainy street, she thinks that maybe he gave her an order to eliminate the traitor and then return the umbrella, actually meaning she should come back after completing the task. Suddenly, a mysterious man appears behind her. But before we learn more about him, we shift our focus back to Lin, our protagonist. While organizing books, Lin finds an old book written by himself, which awakens memories of his past, his former life as an ordinary man who simply loved reading books. The girls he used to work with never really understood him. When he returns home, we see a magical ring in his room, one that Lin himself had conjured. He strikes it with his fist and declares his wish. "Please, let me possess all the books in the world." Nothing happens, or so it seems. Unbeknownst to him, a demon appears behind him and creates a portal to another dimension. Lin immediately understands that if he steps through the portal, he will possess all the books in the world, but will never be able to return to Earth. Without hesitation, he walks through the portal and has lived as a bookstore clerk for the past 3 years in a different world. He didn't mind at all. In fact, he loved it. He could read an infinite number of books and even help his customers with their life problems by giving them the right books. You remember the woman who just bought a book from him. Aside from her, Lin hasn't had any customers in a very long time. Now we return to her and the mysterious man on the street. She walks right past him but suddenly realizes something is wrong. She can't move her hand. At that moment, the mysterious man turns around and says, "Oh, I see. So it's because of that book." The blood in her veins freezes as she realizes something about this man. The rain continues to fall heavily. Now we return to Lin, sitting in his bookstore with a new visitor, the mysterious man from earlier. However, our protagonist already knows him. His name is Frank Wilde, and he's here to return a book he borrowed earlier. The two begin discussing the book Frank Wilde borrowed, and Lin mentions that it was written by a great author who has already passed away. The girl spies from outside and realizes that Frank Wilde is actually a high-level black mage, ranked destructive. There are 4 ranks: abnormal, panic, destructive, and indestructible. Frank Wilde's true name is the Faceless One of Black Scales, and he's famous for the mask he wears and for being a serpent-blooded mage. He once fought one of the 10 Holy Knights of the Order and destroyed an area 10 kilometers wide, earning the title Destructive. In this city, there aren't even 10 destructive mages, and worldwide, fewer than 100. As the girl leaves, she wonders how Lin can casually talk to someone with such overwhelming power. Back in the bookstore, Lin thinks of Frank Wilde as a regular customer who should be treated accordingly. Frank Wilde is a loner. Although he has 2 children, they treat him poorly. His wife left him, and his colleagues fear him because of his appearance. Lin recalls the first time he met Frank Wilde, 2 years ago. When Frank Wilde first entered the shop, he intrigued Lin with both his appearance and behavior, and he was carrying a mysterious, extremely valuable book. Lin offered him tea, but Wilde refused, since he looked terrifying and didn't want to remove his robe. Lin told him that he didn't focus on appearances, only on the heart. Eventually, Frank Wilde removed his robe, revealing his fearsome appearance. Even so, Lin found him even stranger and creepier because of the mask he wore. Lin activated his business mindset and began figuring out how to turn Wilde into a regular customer. He first asked about the book Wilde had brought, which was about dying and magical languages. Wilde was shocked that Lin could sense the magic within the book, something even other destructive mutants couldn't perceive. Just like the woman earlier, Frank Wilde began to suspect Lin and decided to proceed carefully. They talked about the book, and Wilde pretended not to know much, saying he was merely studying those languages. He then asked Lin to teach him more. This was a huge business opportunity for Lin, who offered Wilde a new book to read. The book was about the most complex dialect in China and was called The Devil's Language. Frank Wilde recognized it immediately and became extremely excited. Lin was pleased to have sparked his interest, and Wilde asked how he managed to obtain such a rare book. Lin couldn't tell the truth, that it came from his original world, so he lied and said it came from a splendid ancient civilization. Lin felt a bit sad that he couldn't return to Earth, but Wilde noticed the nostalgia in his voice as he described that civilization. Wilde thought that if Lin truly came from such a civilization, he must be a terrifying individual. After introducing themselves properly, Wilde mentioned that thanks to The Devil's Language, he had started a new line of research and needed another book on the subject. Lin had no idea what Wilde's true intentions were, but his business instincts kicked in again, and he wanted to offer him another book. Now we jump back 40 years into the past. We see snow-covered mountain peaks and a young Wilde, who had reached the highest mountain to speak with the imprisoned king of ancient magical knowledge. The mage king spoke a single word, glanced at a nearby crow, and the bird instantly fell to the ground, dead. Wilde was utterly shocked by the power of magical spells. The mage king explained that mages control the power of words and languages. White mages write spells, while black mages recite incantations. He then gave Wilde the most valuable lesson of all. If Wilde could find the sound of his soul and create his own language, he would attain indescribable power. We return to the present and to the conversation between Wilde and Lord Lin. Wilde says he wants to borrow a book that could help him understand another book he owns, one written in a unique and extremely difficult language. Lord Lin asks Wilde to wait a moment, while he thinks about which book would be most suitable. As Wilde waits, he reflects on how Lord Lin has always been kind to him, and has always helped him when he needed it, even after Wilde suffered a crushing defeat against a man named Joseph, a divine knight. Lord Lin was there to guide him back onto the right path. Wilde also believes that Lord Lin is a reclusive scholar with indescribable power, capable of hiding his strength effortlessly. After 2 years of studying that mysterious, incomprehensible book, Wilde can finally understand parts of it, all thanks to Lord Lin, whom he considers an omniscient sage. This time, Wilde wants to express his gratitude. At that moment, Lord Lin returns with another book, saying that it would be a bold claim to say this book could help Wilde, but he feels quite confident in this field, reinforcing Wilde's impression of him as a powerful scholar. When Wilde sees what kind of book it is, he is completely shocked and asks whether Lord Lin truly wrote it himself. Lin confidently confirms it. Wilde is stunned. He recalls the 3 major religions he knows, but has never heard of the religion of the Ghoul cult. He senses a sinister aura emanating from the book and thinks to himself that Lord Lin must be wicked to have written it. He wonders whether Lord Lin is trying to establish his own religion. Wilde asks whether the book belongs to Lin's field of ritual studies. Lord Lin replies that he studied it a long time ago, and that the book was crucial in changing his destiny. He implies that thanks to this field of study, he was able to leave Earth and work as a librarian in an underground world, possessing all books, though Wilde doesn't know this, which only strengthens his suspicions. Lord Lin then tells old Wilde that the book was never published, and that this is the only copy in existence. He thinks to himself that if he had stayed on Earth and published it, he might have earned the title of associate professor. Looking back at old Wilde, Lord Lin says that since they are acquaintances, he will lend him the book, even though it's the only copy in the world. However, if old Wilde prefers, he can take another book instead. Old Wilde thinks he must take this book, since it's the only copy and written by such a master, but wonders what the powerful Lord Lin might want in return. Still, he says it would be an honor to borrow the book, though he feels uneasy accepting something so valuable. He thinks that perhaps Lord Lin wants to use him as a test subject. Lord Lin decides to apply more of his bookselling techniques and pats old Wilde on the shoulder, saying, "Don't worry, old Wilde. I'm sure you'll add more value to my book. Only when someone reads my work does my research truly matter. As for this book, it's no longer important to me. I have entire forests now." By this, Lord Lin is implying that he no longer needs that single book, as it was merely a stepping stone to his current position, where he possesses a forest of books. That is, all the books in the world. He adds that he still holds all the knowledge within the book and could reprint it at any time, so lending it isn't a problem. He then thinks to himself that old Wilde should take the book. As a solitary scholar, if Wilde publishes it, he would gain wealth and fame, which would heal his soul. Lending books and healing souls has always been Lord Lin's top priority. Once again, old Wilde is utterly astonished and thinks that perhaps Lin is teaching him that fame and wealth are meaningless. But then Lord Lin adds that Wilde should feel free to recommend the book to others. Old Wilde nods, thinking that perhaps this is the price he must pay, to spread the book's knowledge while keeping Lin's authorship a secret. And that is exactly Lord Lin's plan, to heal old Wilde's soul, have him publish the book, and allow him to gain fame and fortune. Old Wilde thanks Lord Lin for his guidance over the years and begins conjuring something as a token of gratitude. It is a gargoyle that old Wilde received from his master upon graduation. The gargoyle can detect killing intent on its own and has extremely high magical resistance. Lord Lin thinks that old Wilde believes this gift isn't very valuable, yet it required exceptional craftsmanship and even seems alive. They thank each other, and old Wilde thinks that a single book from Lord Lin could buy thousands of such gargoyles, making it nothing special. As old Wilde bids farewell, he says that next time he will bring a better gift, one worthy of indescribable power. Lord Lin replies that he looks forward to it as they part ways. After old Wilde leaves, Lord Lin thinks to himself about what kind of gift he should give him, perhaps another one of those gargoyles. As Lord Lin stretches and says that his work for the day is finished, he notices a black liquid rising above his desk. The liquid forms the words, "It's been a long time since we last met." Lord Lin shouts in shock, "It's you!" Lord Lin realizes that this is the demon who sent him to the underground realm and thinks that 3 years have already passed since they last spoke. The demon asks whether it is time for Lord Lin to pay the price for the favor that was granted to him. Lord Lin thinks the demon is rather friendly, since it helped him and fulfilled his greatest wish, so he doesn't expect the price to be very high. The demon then sends another message, saying that the price has already been paid, which is why the demon has awakened. Lord Lin is shocked and begins to wonder what he could have done to already pay the price. Perhaps it was because he allowed old Wilde to recommend the book to someone else. The demon replies by writing, "Yes," with the black liquid on the table. Lord Lin asks whether the price he paid somehow benefits the demon, and the demon answers with another, "Yes." Relieved, Lord Lin says there shouldn't be any problem since the price has already been paid, but he remains suspicious, because it all seemed far too easy. Now we see a man named Jack standing on the balcony of a building as the rain continues to pour. Jack is mysterious for now, but he is part of a special forces unit. He receives a message over the radio, informing him that they have located old Wilde and that he has just spent an hour inside a bookstore. Jack grows suspicious and thinks that this bookstore might be a secret meeting place for black mages. The woman on the other end of the radio is surprised and says she needs to report this to Joseph, the same man old Wilde mentioned earlier, and orders Jack to return. At that moment, old Wilde appears behind Jack and says, "There's a rat," before attacking him. Jack pulls out a knife to stab Old Wild, but before he can, Old Wild grabs his face, utters a single magical word, and Jack dies in the blink of an eye. The woman on the radio calls out to Jack, but Old Wild steps on the radio, crushing it, and says that no one should ever spy on him at his place of residence. Thinking of Lord Lin, he adds that the punishment Jack received was far too merciful for such a transgression. We now return to the headquarters where Jack was supposed to report. A woman knocks on the door of a special knight, saying she has something to report. We see the knight lounging in his chair as he tells the woman, whose name is Claudia, to come in. The knight asks whether something happened to the spawn of the magical mirror, and comments that those hunters are extremely annoying. As he slams the table, he says he'll use their mother's gravestones as punching bags. A little frightened, Claudia says she has a new case for him. The knight asks what could possibly be more important than what Old Wild is doing. She tells him that Jack was killed moments ago, and that he had discovered Old Wild's location before his death. The knight flies into a rage and asks who did it. Claudia replies that it was Old Wild. They had thought he died in the Battle of White Hills 2 years ago, but it seems he survived. The knight says he knew Old Wild had survived and that no one knows him better than he does. He adds that the old plague has finally crawled out of the sewers. The knight is surprised to learn that Old Wild is in the Noken region and asks what he was doing on 23rd Street, where Lord Lin's bookstore is located. Claudia explains that the report is incomplete since Jack never returned to give a full briefing, but they know Old Wild spent an hour in the bookstore. The knight scoffs, saying it makes no sense for a black mage, who uses words for magic, to visit a bookstore. He asks whether there is any background report on the shop. Claudia replies that the bookstore is the flagship store of the Fresno Merchant Group and has been open for 3 years. It has a good reputation but very few customers, and the only strange thing is that the owner is not a local. The knight comments that the Fresno Merchant Group belongs to the Druids, who follow nature and forests, and doubts they have anything to do with black mages. Therefore, he doubts the bookstore is a gathering place for mages. The knight grows even angrier, rushes toward Claudia, and demands to know the mission of their knightly order. With a trembling voice, Claudia replies that it is to eradicate evil and bring peace. The knight says they cannot tolerate anyone who allies with evil or works with those who support it, adding that Wild did not stay in that bookstore just to chat, read a book, and drink tea, although those were exactly the reasons Old Wild stayed there. Still shouting, the knight says that if Claudia truly believes such a powerful black mage spent an hour in a bookstore for such trivial reasons, then she'll need to put on sharpened mithril boots and get kicked a few times to learn her lesson. Terrified, Claudia tells him that the Fresno Merchant Group funds 40% of their operations. The knight realizes his mistake, exhales, and says he will personally go to the bookstore to see what all the fuss is about. As he leaves the base, we see many knights lined up, saluting him respectfully. He reviews Lin's file and says he will personally see what kind of being Lin really is. We then learn that the knight's name is Abraham Joseph, one of the 10 Radiant Knights, and that he once brutally defeated Old Wild. At the end of the chapter, Sir Joseph begins hallucinating again. He sees a brilliant red light everywhere, and a magical sword appears before him. Sir Joseph chants the curse of the magical sword Candela. We see Joseph sinking deeper and deeper into water, demonic tentacles wrapping around him, and even the illusion of a mysterious man trying to strangle him. Joseph snaps out of the hallucination and finds himself standing on a rainy street near Lord Lin's bookstore. Joseph mutters to himself that Candela's curse has activated again, which is why he cannot visit the bookstore right now. The curse originates from the madness of the sword's original owner. It drives people insane through hallucinations, and only extraordinarily powerful knights can resist it with sheer willpower. But the curse has reawakened before Joseph could find a suitable successor for the sword. Joseph thinks to himself that he is not an invincible holy knight. He can no longer endure the curse. He is nothing more than a useless old man. He then walks away down the rainy street without visiting the bookstore. Now we see the drained corpses of the enemies who attacked the girl at the beginning of the story, along with a robed man named Helix, the leader of the White Wolf clan. Helix admits that he underestimated the girl. After all, she was once the second in command, so it's understandable that she wouldn't be weak. We return to the girl standing before a burning building and learn more about her. She is the former second in command of the White Wolf clan, the clan now led by Helix, and her name is Jijishu. More enemies rush toward her from behind, but she defeats them without hesitation and asks Max to report the situation. We then see Max on a rooftop, confirming that Helix has gone completely insane after obtaining the spawn of the magical mirror, and has begun slaughtering hunters ever since. Max warns G that they are at a disadvantage, as Helix has allied himself with Casper, the third in command. Another woman named Kay approaches them, saying that Helix and Casper likely planned this attack long ago, and that they are now far too powerful. She then tells G that she was betrayed solely because of that scheming bastard, Helix. G thanks Kay, saying that the only reason she survived the pursuit was thanks to her. G thinks to herself that Kay is truly remarkable. She can suppress the side effects of tainted blood, meaning that even while transformed, she can maintain full control, something ordinary hunters can never achieve. We then see a man known as Rat Ryan shouting that Helix and Casper are close to panicking, and that once G and K transform, they will be able to defeat them easily. K openly despises Rat Ryan, but G says they can trust him, as a loyalty rune has been branded onto his soul. G then explains that K and Max can resist the mental corruption of the magical mirror because the rune was cast by a white mage, who adds that everyone carries tainted blood and that hunting that cruel dream beast is the path they all chose. G lets out a battle cry, telling her hunters that there is no turning back. They agree and follow her orders, declaring that this will be their final battle. They arrive at the entrance of a church, smash the doors open, and rush inside. There, they find Casper, the third in command, and are shocked to see him alone. They ask where Helix is and why Casper is by himself. Casper laughs as she charges toward him, sensing that something is wrong. She quickly realizes that she has begun transforming, pulls out a syringe, and injects herself to slow the transformation. She demands to know where Helix is, but Casper, still transforming, screams, "His Holiness will come!" Casper then explodes, taking his own life. Shocked and enraged, G smashes the crystal mirror. Max asks whether they should ask Lord Haywood for help, but G immediately refuses and orders him to continue investigating. She then tells Ryan to follow her. Stunned, he asks where they're going, and she replies, 23rd Street. We now see our protagonist, Lord Lin, sitting in his bookstore, drinking coffee and reading a book, thinking to himself that today is yet another day without customers. Since Wilde and G last visited, 3 days have passed without a single customer. He reflects that he's only surviving thanks to the dark-skinned woman who has been funding the bookstore, and hopes that the book he recommended to her was helpful. He then considers coming up with new strategies to better share his books, since the terrible weather will likely keep customers away. At that moment, someone enters the bookstore. It's Miss G, wearing a beautiful dress, which surprises Lord Lin slightly, but he happily welcomes her. He then remembers that she's the daughter of a wealthy tycoon and realizes this is his chance to make his business thrive by turning her into a regular customer. He tells her he didn't expect her to return so soon and that she's the first person to visit the bookstore in 3 days. G thinks to herself that Lord Lin must be disappointed in her. After giving her such good guidance last time, she still came back asking for more help. She notices the gargoyle Lord Lin received from Wilde and wonders whether it belongs to a mage. Even though it doesn't move, she can feel a powerful aura radiating from it. G continues thinking about how Lord Lin tries to present himself as an ordinary person, yet openly displays such a gargoyle. Is he trying to comfort her and encourage her again, just like before? She then apologizes to Lord Lin for disappointing him. At that moment, Rat Ryan enters the bookstore and asks G if this is the place she brought him to. He's surprised to see Lord Lin and wonders why the boss would bring him to meet an ordinary person. Lord Lin asks who the man is, and G explains that he's her subordinate, emphasizing that he is completely loyal. Lord Lin begins serving coffee and thinks that G must have been traumatized by that bastard she mentioned in Chapter 1, the one he advised her to take revenge on. He thinks that she was so deeply traumatized that she now feels the need to emphasize loyalty whenever she introduces someone. But then he realizes that if she followed his advice and took revenge, she should feel more at ease now. So why did she say she disappointed him? He asks whether she failed in her revenge and offers her coffee. She thinks to herself that even though she never said it outright, Lord Lin already knows, so she admits that yes, she failed. They are talking about different people. She is talking about Helix and her attempt to kill him, while Lord Lin believes she is talking about her ex-boyfriend who betrayed her. She explains that Helix escaped, and that she couldn't take her revenge. She sent others to search for him, but they still haven't found him. She fought him for 2 days, and after receiving Lord Lin's teachings, she began gaining the upper hand and even destroyed his base. Despite paying a heavy price, Helix managed to escape because she underestimated him. She apologizes to Lord Lin for being careless. With a smile, Lord Lin tells her it's not her fault. As he sips his coffee, he is completely confused, thinking G is talking about her ex-boyfriend. He wonders why she describes romance as if it were a battle and recalls a saying, "Love is like shopping, and shopping is like fighting, therefore, love is fighting." He assumes Ji is used to business terminology because her father is a businessman, which is why she describes things this way. At last, he believes he understands. Ji meant that she argued with that man for days and only realized how cunning he was when he ran off with her money. He pours Miss Ji another cup of coffee and tells her that he understands. Miss Ji feels slightly relieved and asks Lord Lin what he thinks. In the background, Rat Ryan looks utterly confused, having no idea what the hell is going on. We rewind slightly to learn more about Rat Ryan. He is on the phone with someone, telling them that Wild is currently in the Noken region. The person on the other end praises Ryan for obtaining such classified information so easily. Ryan cuts off the praise and tells them to focus on someone else for the moment. The person thanks Ryan again and tells him who the next target will be. Ryan says it's just a naive girl who believes the rune of truth is secure, when in reality it's very easy to break. At that moment, Kay calls Rat Ryan, telling him that Ji is looking for him and that he will no longer be a mindless rat, but her subordinate. Ryan apologizes and says he's on his way. As he leaves, he thinks to himself that Kay has the ability to control lycanthropy with ease, and if he can learn how to do that, he could become the ultimate intelligence needed to destroy the hunters forever. For those who don't know, lycanthropy is the ability to transform into a wolf, or a werewolf. We return to the present, where Ryan is completely confused, unable to understand why Ji is speaking to this man with such respect, as if he possessed some kind of indescribable power, when he's nothing more than an ordinary human. Then she asks Lord Lin to guide her, and he tells her not to worry so much, that it's actually much simpler than she thinks. Her enemy isn't that man right now, but something else entirely, and what she truly fears is herself. He tells her to wait a little longer, that good news will come. Ryan realizes that all of this is nothing but lies and empty words. He knows them well, they're the tricks of a liar. And Rat Ryan is a liar too. Lord Lin then quickly apologizes and asks Ryan to wait a moment, saying his stomach started bothering him after drinking too much tea, since he thought he wouldn't have any customers today. When he leaves, Rat Ryan raises his voice and asks Ji what the hell she's doing. She tells him to watch his tone, that she brought him here because he might have useful information, not because she trusts or values him, and calls him insolent. Ryan loses control and starts shouting that Lord Lin is a liar, saying that while he himself may be insolent, he knows for a fact that Lord Lin's deception still needs a lot of work. He warns Ji that Lord Lin is manipulating her. At that very moment, he feels the cold blade of Ji against his throat as she yells that she knew she shouldn't have brought him, that a vile man like him can only see evil. She warns him that if he weren't useful, she would end his life right there. Ryan thinks to himself that he needs to calm down and manipulate Ji, since he believes she's easy to control. He tells her that he's loyal to her, and only to her, and that when Lord Lin returns he'll prove it. He prepares his poisoned arrow, ready to attack Lord Lin the moment he appears. At that moment, the magical gargoyle Lord Lin received from Wild awakens, having sensed Ryan's murderous intent. It grabs Ryan, leaving Ji in shock, pulls him swiftly toward its mouth, and devours him in the blink of an eye. Just before Lord Lin returns, the gargoyle goes back into its dormant state, once again resembling an ordinary statue. Lord Lin comes back, apologizing for stepping away and asking, "Where is your subordinate?" Ji is completely terrified and frozen in place. With a trembling voice, she replies that something urgent came up. Still paralyzed by fear, Ji begins to think about how everything happened so fast. She didn't even realize it, didn't have time to react. The gargoyle attacked and swallowed Rat Ryan so quickly that if she had been the target, she wouldn't have been able to defend herself at all. She would have been completely obliterated without even a chance. As chills from the greatest fear of her life run through her body, she wonders if this is what it feels like to stare death in the face. Then she thinks that Lord Lin must have realized Rat Ryan was a liar and wanted to get rid of him, but didn't want to dirty his own hands. That's why he left the room for a moment, letting his gargoyle swiftly deal with that ignorant man. She thinks it's such a brutal yet elegant tactic and reflects that she never should have brought Rat Ryan in the first place. Then another thought strikes her. She may have angered Lord Lin, and if he thinks she was behind this, what might he do to her? But at that moment, Lord Lin interrupts her thoughts, asking, "You look pale. What's wrong?" He tells her to relax, saying that his bookstore should be a place where people come to unwind. "Don't be afraid. I'm not going to eat you," he says. Miss Ji becomes even more terrified, if that's even possible, and starts trembling as she apologizes. saying her subordinate was rude and that she never should have brought him into the bookstore. Lord Lin is once again completely confused, unable to understand why she's so nervous and frightened. He thinks, does she really believe I eat people? But there's no way she would think something like that about such a kind bookseller. He concludes that she must simply be too naive and believes everything people say. That's probably why she was betrayed by her ex. Lord Lin reflects on this and realizes that he likely earned her trust by healing her soul the last time she came, which is why she returned, hoping he could help her again. He apologizes for joking around and asks Miss G if there's anything he can help her with. Seeing that Lord Lin is calm, Miss G relaxes a little as well. She apologizes for her misconduct and asks for a book that could help strengthen her willpower. Lord Lin says it's no problem, and as he looks for a suitable book, he wonders why she looks so frightened. He was only gone for a couple of minutes. What could have happened? Maybe it's because her subordinate left so suddenly. Lord Lin decides to comment on it, saying that Rat Ryan didn't look well and that it's better not to talk about things like absolute loyalty. She's shocked, realizing that Lord Lin didn't say this randomly. Something must be wrong with the rune of loyalty. She thinks that only the white mages who create such runes can break them, and the mage who created Ryan's rune works for her father, Haywood. If Ryan's rune isn't functioning, then her father must be breaking the runes to manipulate others. She blurts out, "How can this be? Who can I trust?" And without missing a beat, Lord Lin replies, "You can only trust yourself." He tells her that she can never fully understand another individual, and that the best path forward is to become strong and resolute, so no one can defeat her, and she won't have to rely on others. He then offers her a book titled How the Steel Was Tempered. She is surprised, but Lin tells her that once she reads it, it will truly help her. He quotes a few lines to encourage her, telling her to strike while the iron is hot. Man's dearest possession is life, and it is given to him to live. As she leaves, he continues quoting more lines from the book. Now she's walking down the street again. She looks at the book's cover for a moment, then opens it. The book releases particles of light around G, startling her slightly, and then a massive demonic eye appears above her. "The endless wheel of steel has a different effect on the power of the soul," is the quote she hears. G is confused, unable to understand what just happened, as visions of the bookstore and the gargoyle flood her mind. The vision then focuses on the gargoyle's neck, where we can see the people it has swallowed, one of them being Ryan, whose truth rune has vanished from his neck. She realizes that the rune was indeed shattered and broken. The demonic eye above her fires dark energy at her. She feels pain, her nose begins to bleed, and within the vision she finds herself standing before a suffering Ryan. Now she's back in reality, thinking about how incredible Lord Lin is, how easily he altered her soul and poured massive amounts of mana into her. She finally has a chance to break past the panic level and reach a higher tier of power. Satisfaction floods her body, as if Lord Lin has given her a second life. She believes he wants to help all hunters step by step. She feels that she finally understands his goals. She swears absolute loyalty to him, offering her body and everything she has, vowing that she will never disappoint Lord Lin again. Inside the bookstore, as Lord Lin is organizing books, he turns around and sees G standing in the rain outside. He realizes she's been there the entire time. But why is her nose bleeding? He wonders as she suddenly runs off. Lord Lin thinks that maybe she's fallen in love with him after being betrayed by her ex and left vulnerable, and he was there for her. No, that can't be, he thinks. I need to focus on my customers. The chapter ends with the holy Knight Joseph standing in front of the bookstore. Now we see the radiant Knight Joseph before the shop, a magical aura surrounding him, shielding him from the rain at all times. He isn't that powerful. He wonders why a powerful dark mage like Wild would choose to spend an entire hour in such an ordinary bookstore. But Joseph decides he can't let this opportunity slip away and steps inside to investigate. As he enters, he reminds himself that as a knight, it is his duty to protect the law and maintain peace. We now see our main protagonist, Lord Lin, casually sitting in a chair, flipping through books. The one in his hand is The Little Prince. He reflects on how it's a children's book, yet filled with profound philosophy, both touching and tender. He decides to read it tonight before going to bed. At that moment, the doorbell rings as someone enters the bookstore. Lord Lin gets excited about having a new customer, and then thinks that Miss G must be his lucky charm, because every time she visits, another customer walks in right after she leaves. Now we see the imposing presence of the radiant Knight Joseph. Lord Lin immediately senses that this man has a threatening presence, but being the kind bookseller he is, he welcomes him and offers his assistance. Joseph scans the area with his magical eye but realizes it's just an ordinary bookstore, and that Lord Lin is merely an ordinary man. He can't understand why Wilde would spend time here. Then Joseph notices the gargoyle and thinks that it's the only unusual thing in the entire shop. He reasons that old Wilde wouldn't give such a gargoyle to just anyone and decides to investigate further. He asks Lord Lin if he's the true owner of the bookstore. Before answering, Lord Lin thinks that this man seems a bit antisocial, so he chooses to use a warm and respectful tone. He says, "That's right, Grandpa." Grandpa Joseph is stunned, then instantly furious. Even though Lord Lin was trying to be polite, Joseph takes it the wrong way, interpreting it as an insult. He thinks about crushing Lord Lin's skull, but restrains himself. After all, Lin is just an ordinary civilian. Joseph then asks if the gargoyle truly belongs to him. Lord Lin says yes, that a customer gifted it to him, which is why it's not for sale. Joseph thinks he would never want to buy something like that anyway. What would a radiant knight even do with a gargoyle made by a dark mage? He asks if old Wilde was the one who gave it to him. Lord Lin confirms it, while thinking that this man might hold a grudge against Wilde, judging by his hostile demeanor. Joseph is still confused, unable to understand why a powerful dark mage would give such a powerful gargoyle to an ordinary man. He initially thought this place was a gathering point for dark mages, but after inspecting it, he realizes it's just a normal bookstore with an average shopkeeper. Still, maybe they use this place to exchange secret messages. That's Joseph's conclusion. This bookstore must be a covert exchange point for dark mages. We then see Lord Lin analyzing Joseph in his own mind. Despite Joseph's threatening aura, Lin believes he must be a good man with a gentle soul. After all, he didn't break anything when he entered the shop. And if he has a gentle soul, he shouldn't harbor hatred toward a literary scholar like old Wilde. Then Lord Lin recalls a quote from Sherlock Holmes. "When you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth." He realizes something and asks Joseph if he's a friend of old Wilde. Joseph is completely taken aback, but decides to take advantage of it, saying yes, that he's known him for many, many years, that they've shared blood together in war, but had a small conflict 2 years ago, and hasn't heard from him since. As Joseph thinks to himself that the moment he sees old Wilde again, he'll tear off his head and crush his bones, just like he nearly did last time, before Wilde escaped death using unknown magic. Lord Lin, meanwhile, is thinking how deeply connected they must be. What an enviable friendship. He tells Joseph that he figured they were close friends because Joseph immediately recognized the gargoyle as Wilde's. Joseph says he's been searching for Wilde all these years and asks if Lord Lin knows where he is now, saying he'd like to pay him a personal visit. Lord Lin says he'd be happy to give him the address, but unfortunately, he doesn't have it. However, he tells Joseph that old Wilde borrowed a book and will return in a couple of days to give it back. When he does, Lord Lin will tell him that Joseph is looking for him. He then asks Joseph if he'd like to sit down and rest for a bit, his business instincts kicking in as he also asks if he'd like to borrow a book. Joseph replies, "Do I look tired?" He thinks to himself that even though Lord Lin is just an ordinary man, he's speaking casually and kindly to someone immensely powerful. No one has spoken to him like this in many, many years, not since he became a radiant knight. Joseph then says he isn't tired, but sees no reason to refuse some tea. He adds that he won't read any books, since he dislikes reading and didn't bring any money. Lord Lin thinks Joseph is incredibly arrogant, judging by his tone, but that he's opening up a little. So he offers him tea and tells him he can read any book behind him for free. Joseph refuses again, thinking that his headache is getting worse. At that moment, Lord Lin simply slides a book toward him. The title is The Seed of the Abyss. He also mentions that he's currently reading a fairy tale that's very relaxing and comforting for the soul before bed, and that if Joseph wants, he can keep the book to help soothe his spirit. Joseph scoffs and says, "A fairy tale? Young man, you're an adult too. Why would you read something so childish?" Lord Lin feels slightly disappointed by Joseph's condescending attitude and says, "What a shame. This book is actually very good. It's the only copy in the entire Nokin region." Joseph is surprised and asks Lord Lin, "Are you sure this book is a fairy tale?" Lord Lin looks a little confused and replies, "Yes, it's a classic story. Is there a problem?" Joseph thinks to himself that no one in their right mind would call a book titled The Seed of the Abyss a children's bedtime fairy tale. Now we learn something new, and encounter a surprising twist. The books Lord Lin gives to his customers appear differently to each person. They change based on what the customer's soul truly needs. That's why Joseph was shocked. Lord Lin spoke of a fairy tale, yet the book's title read A Seed of the Abyss. To Lord Lin, however, The very same book appeared as The Little Prince, which truly is a children's story. Joseph becomes intrigued. Because of this, he asks Lord Lin if he can take a look at the book, not because he's interested, but because he's a polite man who doesn't want to reject such a courteous offer, especially since Lord Lin keeps recommending it. Lord Lin thinks to himself that this grandpa really looks tough and masculine on the outside, but is actually gentle and soft-hearted on the inside. When Lord Lin hands him the book, the moment Joseph touches it, he feels a familiar sensation of dizziness and pain. He realizes it's the sword candela resonating with something. At that moment, he wonders, is it the book? Completely confused, as he collapses to the floor, he recalls Lord Lin's words. Bedtime. Is this what he meant? We see Joseph struggling to stay conscious, but he eventually blacks out and falls to the ground. Lord Lin, utterly shocked, shouts, Grandpa, are you okay? What's happening? As he rushes over to give Joseph first aid, he worries that Joseph might be having a stroke. After checking his pulse, he realizes that Joseph's breathing and heartbeat are perfectly stable. He's simply asleep. Lord Lin feels puzzled and remarks that Joseph's pulse is even stronger than his own at his peak, despite Lin being young and Joseph being so old. But then fear creeps in again. Why did he collapse? Why did he fall asleep so suddenly? Does it have something to do with the book? No, there's no way. Why would someone pass out just from seeing the title The Little Prince? Still, Lord Lin regains his composure and tells himself, he's my customer. He collapsed in my bookstore. I need to take care of him, make him comfortable, and ask him about it when he wakes up. We now see Lord Lin trying to lift Joseph and carry him somewhere more comfortable. But even using all his strength, he can't move Joseph an inch. Completely exhausted, he thinks about how incredibly heavy Joseph is, all muscle, like a massive brown bear. He thinks it would be much easier to carry Joseph if he were as thin as Old Wild. Lord Lin then considers that maybe another customer will come by and help him move Joseph. But there's no way anyone would show up at this hour, especially in such terrible weather. He apologizes softly to Joseph. I'm sorry for doing this, but I really have no other choice. This is beyond my ability. Unable to lift him, Lord Lin begins dragging Joseph across the floor by his coat, trying to find a more comfortable spot. After settling him into a chair, he notices that Joseph has a mechanical arm and thinks that maybe Joseph is disabled, just like Old Wild. But then he observes how complex and intricate the mechanical arm is, and tells himself that there's no way an ordinary old man could carry something like that. At that point, Lord Lin concludes that Joseph must be a high-ranking retired military officer, judging by his demeanor, appearance, behavior, and way of speaking, especially given how muscular he is for an elderly man. Yes, that must be it, Lord Lin thinks. He's met retired military officers before, and they all carry that same unmistakable aura. Lord Lin also assumes Joseph must suffer from PTSD due to his reserved nature, and that he probably views his lost arm as a glorious reminder of a battle he once fought. People like that are always so stubborn. No wonder he comes across as arrogant. Then Lord Lin wonders if Joseph's mechanical arm malfunctioned, maybe releasing some kind of electric shock that caused him to pass out and fall asleep. He then thinks to himself that if anyone had seen what just happened, they might assume Lord Lin was a serial killer who had just murdered someone and dragged the body to the back of the shop. No, that's impossible, he reassures himself. I'm a model citizen, and even if this scene could be misunderstood, there's no one here to see it. But then we see a cat peeking through the door, before bolting away. Lord Lin hears someone enter the shop, unaware that it was the cat leaving, so he goes to check and notices the door standing open. Stepping outside to see what's going on, he spots the cat running away and calls out, warning it to be careful because the weather is dangerous. He assumes it's just an ordinary cat, but we see that the cat is actually terrified, having real thoughts about what it just witnessed. After running farther and growing exhausted, the cat suddenly speaks. Cancel shapeshift, the spell activates, and the cat begins transforming into a man. We learn that this man is a spy working for a secret instrument tower. When we see his face, he's crying, thinking, how could this happen? We learn more about him and realize that he's Joseph's biggest fan. He studied relentlessly, and worked incredibly hard to join Joseph's order as a spy. Because of that, he knows everything about the Radiant Knights, their battles, their enemies, and even the legendary clash between Joseph and Old Wild. After learning that Joseph went to the bookstore to investigate why Wild had been there, this man decided to transform into a cat and follow him, ready to protect him if help was needed. But once he realized it was just an ordinary bookstore, he waited outside, hoping to get Joseph's autograph after he finished. However, Joseph took far too long, so he peeked inside to see what was delaying him, only to catch the exact moment Joseph began to collapse. The cat then started thinking about how terrifyingly powerful Lord Lin must be, to subdue and defeat Joseph so effortlessly. After watching Lord Lin drag Joseph away, he heard him say, "Even a veteran like you deserves some sleep." The cat completely misunderstood the situation and sensed an ominous aura coming from Lord Lin, believing he was casting some kind of dark spell on Joseph while he slept. Terrified, the cat realizes that if Lord Lin is powerful enough to defeat Joseph, he could easily kill him too. Panicking, he starts running away, shouting, "I have to get out of here as fast as possible. I'm scared." His voice sounds like he's about to wet himself. Now we see the man trembling under the rain, shaking uncontrollably as he thinks, "So this is what it feels like, to stare death in the face." He believes that if Lord Lin wanted to, he could have killed him, but for some reason, he let him go. Is he expecting him to return and report this? We learn that the man's name is Morris. He decides he has no choice but to go back and report everything he's witnessed. Then we see Joseph awakening once more, finding himself submerged in deep waters again. He wonders where he is. He assumes it's another cursed illusion caused by Candela. "But why don't I feel any pain?" Then he hears a voice. "When you gaze into the abyss gazes back, and recognizes one of its own." The voice comes from the book. Its words flood Joseph's mind. "Stop, this is too much." Then he hears another voice say, "I'm glad to finally meet you." Joseph feels the pain fading away and realizes that Candela's curse has finally been lifted. When he looks toward Candela's illusion, he sees a beautiful blonde knight, the sword's first owner. The curse is gone. This is the kind of fairy tale Joseph spoke of in his dream. As he awakens and returns to reality, he shouts, "Fairy tales are supposed to be for children." Still slightly dazed, as Joseph wakes up, we see Lord Lin turn around and say, "Oh, Grandpa, you're finally awake." Instead of flying into a rage as he normally would, Joseph forms a faint smile, looks at Lord Lin, and says, "Thank you." Lord Lin replies that it's no problem, asking how he feels and whether he's all right. Joseph thinks for a moment before answering, "I feel great, better than ever." Lord Lin then becomes even more convinced that, with Joseph's build, there's no way he's anything other than a retired military officer. He realizes his ability to judge people is becoming increasingly accurate, and thinks that Joseph is so strong he could probably kill someone with a single punch. If Joseph punched Old Wild, he might blow off the upper half of his body. Good thing they're friends. Joseph then apologizes to Lord Lin for accepting his hospitality and causing trouble. But Lord Lin says it's no trouble at all. His job is to help customers. That's exactly what he told Old Wild as well. Joseph says he understands, thinking to himself that with Lord Lin's easygoing attitude, he would help anyone, regardless of affiliation. From the moment you step into the bookstore, you become his customer, and he will take care of you to the best of his ability. Joseph reflects that he's only ever seen such kindness and purity of heart in one group before, the elves, an ancient and long-lived race. It makes sense that Lord Lin would be an elf as well. Having lived for countless years, he must have long since moved beyond the distinctions between good and evil. To him, everyone is equal, and he treats all with warmth and courtesy. Such elegance can only be achieved through years of refinement. He likely opened this bookstore because of the knowledge he possesses. Joseph then recalls that Candela was once the prince of the ancient elven kingdom, who later became the moon king of the elves, but also the first to lose his sanity. He ended his own life with his sword, sealing his soul within it. Thus, the curse of Candela was born, driving future wielders into madness through hallucinations until they lost both reason and life. Until today, Joseph believed there was no way to escape this curse. But this book helped seal Candela's curse. He realizes that only an elf could possess such a book, and not an ordinary one. This elf must have lived for thousands upon thousands of years, likely using immense magical power to preserve the book in perfect condition. That's why Lord Lin doesn't radiate magical aura. Everything finally makes sense. Joseph then asks if he may borrow the book, since it's the only copy. Lord Lin, pleased to see Joseph take interest, replies, "Of course. I wouldn't recommend it if you couldn't borrow it." Once again, his business instincts kick in, and he offers Joseph some validation, because everyone likes to hear it. He says, "The moment I saw you, I knew this book was perfect for you. There are many people like you, those who carry immense pain born from turmoil and regret within their hearts. It makes them feel as though their strength is lacking, which leads them to doubt themselves, and eventually to madness." Lord Lin tells Joseph that those who have witnessed the battlefield firsthand never forget it easily, and they carry those terrible memories for the rest of their lives. he continues. In the end, it's not pain that defeats them, but a crippling kind of kindness. Joseph thinks about the 2 previous sword-bearers he's seen succumb to that very feeling of inadequacy, and asks Lord Lin, "Is it wrong to be kind?" Lord Lin answers, "Kindness itself isn't the problem. Crippling kindness is, because they hold themselves to such high standards, they believe they bear immense responsibility for others. That belief is actually their weakness. With that kind of kindness, they can save others, but never themselves. And the moment their spirit weakens, they become vulnerable to everything." He tells Joseph that it's okay not to always be the invincible hero. Sometimes, it takes even more courage to simply be an ordinary man. Mr. Lin thinks to himself that this is a brilliant business strategy, so good it almost brings him to tears, and that it will surely get through to Joseph as well. Joseph finally understands and realizes that it isn't the curse that drives people insane and pushes them to end their own lives, but rather their relentless pursuit of perfection. He wonders why no one noticed this before or ever told him. He then asks Mr. Lin how long this calm state will last, and Mr. Lin thinks to himself that it won't last long, since it's only a children's book. If it had a permanent effect, psychiatrists wouldn't be needed at all. He then tells Joseph that it won't last very long, but if Joseph allows Mr. Lin to help him, he can guarantee a long-term result. However, what Mr. Lin is actually thinking is that this will secure him a repeat customer. Joseph, on the other hand, is completely shocked, thinking that Mr. Lin is actually asking to take on Candela's curse himself. Joseph then thinks that people might say he has already wielded the sword for too long, that he has been wallowing in his own failures even before the sword had the chance to corrupt him. The invincible sacred flame used to sound intimidating, but now it doesn't anymore. Joseph thinks it was a good decision to retire. Perhaps all of this happened just so the sword could find its next rightful owner. Joseph asks Mr. Lin if he is sure he wants to wield Candela's sword and bear its curse. While Mr. Lin is actually thinking about comforting Joseph in the future and giving him more books, creating yet another humorous misunderstanding, Mr. Lin sees himself as a professional life coach, and because of the misunderstanding between the two of them, he tells Joseph there's nothing to worry about. "You're barely standing upright, right? If you want, I can give you this book." Joseph is stunned and doesn't know what to say, but Mr. Lin continues. "You've been carrying those burdens for far too long. You and your heroic comrades deserve to rest." Joseph is completely awed by Mr. Lin's selflessness, elegance, and grace, thinking that only those who have lived for a very long time could reach such a level. Joseph smiles and replies that there's no need to rest just yet. He will do so once there is peace in the world. As he prepares to leave, he asks if he can borrow the book. Mr. Lin says it's no problem. Joseph just needs to register his information before taking it. Mr. Lin then thinks to himself, "Yes, I've gained a new customer." Joseph fills out his information, bows in gratitude, and leaves the bookstore, saying that he has no more regrets left, only justice to carry out. Whether Old Wilde survived or not doesn't matter, because sooner or later, when Joseph gets his hands on Wilde, he will finish him once and for all. As the chapter comes to an end, we see Old Wilde in his chambers, studying the book Mr. Lin gave him, saying that the knowledge within it is as vast as the sky and as deep as the ocean. He feels an overwhelming sense of euphoria as he learns about secret sacrificial rituals from the book. This book is a savage ceremony and a grotesque task. Old Wilde then turns around, looks at his black mask, and thinks that perhaps it's time for the black-scaled face to reappear and Noken once more. He feels a hypnotic surge of emotion and says to himself, "This is all thanks to Mr. Lin. I prepared a special gift for him, and I'm sure he'll like it." We then return to Joseph's space, where his disciple is utterly shocked after hearing the report from the black cat, which was actually the shape-shifted spy. The report states that Joseph fainted simply from looking at Mr. Lin. Claudia wonders how that's even possible and thinks she needs to send reinforcements to rescue Joseph. But then she realizes that rushing reinforcements might be a mistake, because Mr. Lin is likely so powerful that he made Joseph faint with just a glance. If she sends others and causes more losses, it would only be an even bigger mistake. Suddenly, her phone starts ringing. She receives a call from the team currently investigating the bookstore. The moment she answers, she shouts, "What's going on?" She is then completely stunned to learn that Joseph is simply walking out of the bookstore, as if nothing happened. Shortly after, she receives a call from Joseph himself and asks, "Master, what are your orders?" Joseph says, "Withdraw all investigative forces from the bookstore immediately." From now on, the bookstore area is classified as a Class 1 secret. Claudia is utterly shocked and exclaims, "Class 1? She recalls the classification list. A for anomalous, P for panic, D for destructive, and the most powerful, Class 1, for the indescribable. This means Joseph has classified the bookstore as possessing an indescribable level of power, believing that Mr. Lin's strength is at the very top. She asks Joseph what's going on, and he replies that the bookstore owner is, but his sentence is cut short when he notices 3 stray black kittens in a box under the rain. He then asks Claudia over the phone, "Claudia, is there anyone with you right now?" She answers yes and immediately realizes that Joseph probably thinks she was careless, trusting someone and getting compromised. We see Joseph playing with the stray kittens while threatening Claudia. "If you know what your job is, then why aren't you doing it? Do you really want me to send you to the Northern Highlands to farm potatoes?" She quickly replies that of course she doesn't, and assures him that she'll immediately issue the order to classify the bookstore as Class 1. She then thinks to herself that Joseph sounds completely normal, and hasn't changed at all. Even though he looks like he might crush your skull when he's angry, as long as you follow his orders precisely, he never holds a grudge. Claudia admires Joseph, thinking of him as a sharp-tongued knight with a gentle heart, a radiant knight. She then explains the entire situation Joseph just told her to the officials in charge of classification, stating that this is the new order from the radiant knight Joseph, trusting that the elders will understand appropriately. She murmurs to herself that the new case file is ready, and that when the radiant knight Joseph returns, he'll need to fill in all the details. At that moment, the office door suddenly bursts open, and Joseph walks in, saying, "All right," causing Claudia to scream in shock. Joseph asks who was with her on the phone earlier. Realizing there had been someone present, he says that a memory-erasing rune will need to be used on that person. Claudia explains that the person is her special investigator, Morrison Gregg, a mage with exceptional shape-shifting talent. She also mentions that he's a bit special because he's a huge fan of Joseph. He's joined 13 fan clubs of the Invincible Sacred Flame, spending around $3 million a year on various fundraisers, including having the name Abraham Joseph engraved during last year's gold incident. As Joseph fills out the report, he asks Claudia if that really happened, and she confirms it. Joseph then remarks, "I know mage families are wealthy," which she confirms again. Joseph comments, "Instead of spending money on such meaningless things, why doesn't he just donate it directly to his idol?" He then decides to take Morrison Gregg as his disciple, charging a fee for close contact. Claudia is completely shocked, wondering how a radiant knight could be so greedy as to even take money from kids. Still, as merely Joseph's disciple herself, she immediately responds, "Of course, I'll tell him." Joseph says this will save the cost of a memory wipe, while the report he fills out appears on screen, stating that this should be enough to keep people away from the bookstore. However, if some idiot still decides to enter, he wishes them good luck. We then see Joseph at home, wearing pajamas and talking on the phone, saying, "I'm fine. I'm not dead. Who told you I was dead?" He adds that the only thing that could kill him would be that person annoying him any further. He says he's not working right now and tells them to go bother Claudia tomorrow instead. Joseph looks at the book Mr. Lin gave him and thinks that the sword still feels gentle, calm, and pleasant, which is a good thing. Moreover, the book isn't affecting his emotional state, which is also very good. At that moment, the phone rings again. Joseph gets slightly irritated and says, "Who's calling this time? They'll have to raise my salary to compensate for the emotional damage these low-ranking seconds are causing me." We then see Joseph talking to his daughter, telling her to drink milk before going to bed. She replies that she already knows, because she's no longer a child. She says she's an anomalous level combat captain and doesn't need to be reminded of everything. Joseph responds that he's not telling her to drink milk to grow taller, but because she'll never get married if she keeps this up, leaving his daughter completely shocked. She gets slightly annoyed, thinking her father has muscles for brains. As she turns around, she notices a few books on the table. One of them is the book Mr. Lin gave to Joseph. She finds it strange. Why would her father read a book if he only has muscles for brains? She approaches the book and, upon opening it, is completely stunned. We then hear Joseph yelling on the phone again, telling his subordinates to stop bothering him about the Class 1 case, and that Mr. Lin incapacitated him without even breaking a sweat. He warns them that if any of them manage to do the same, he'll also file a Class 1 report on them. He further warns them not to go near the bookstore, and that if they get into trouble by disobeying his orders, he won't save them. Joseph then returns to his daughter, who is reading the book. When she hears him approaching, she quickly closes it, afraid that her father might get angry. He looks at her in his cute pajamas and says in a threatening voice, "Melissa." The blood in her veins freezes in fear. However, he simply offers her a glass of milk and tells her to remember to drink it. He then thinks to himself that Melissa is probably in her rebellious phase, but that's not a problem, as long as she grows up healthy. We now see Melissa in her room, still somewhat shaken, wondering who wrote that book, whether the protagonist could be the elf King Candela, and why the stories in the book are so vivid and real. But most importantly, she hasn't finished reading it yet. She was just getting to the best part, and wanted to see what would happen next. But her father interrupted her. She calls him an idiot, and says that aside from being strong and handsome, he's nothing but a useless fool. Then she thinks that she didn't expect someone like her father to read that kind of book, and maybe she was a little unfair to him. But she remembers hearing him mention that the book came from a highly classified bookstore. A highly classified bookstore? Who cares? It's still just an ordinary bookstore. Those powerful old men wouldn't stay in a place like a bookstore. She then uses a key she obtained from her mother, who was also a radiant knight, to access the classified bookstore files. She thanks her mother and promises that after finishing the novel, she'll work hard to become an excellent knight. She opens the bookstore file and while reading it, sees that the target is classified as friendly. That's nothing special. She knew it wasn't that impressive. In that case, if the target is friendly, she can just go there and take a look herself. Before going to sleep, she notices a glass of milk on the table, mixes coffee into it, and drinks it, thinking to herself, "That way I'll grow." We then hear a radio broadcast reporting that the rain warning level has been raised to red. The road leading to the lower city district of Noken has been temporarily closed, and all drainage systems are currently operating at maximum capacity. According to experts, if this heavy rain continues for another week, 1/3 of Noken will be completely flooded. Expert analysis shows that the rain originates from a cold air mass over the northern highlands. We now see Mr. Lin inside his bookstore, mopping the floors and thinking to himself that this heavy rain has been falling for over a week and keeps getting worse. If it keeps raining this hard, he'll need to buy a boat. Even trying to live a normal life will be difficult, he thinks, since when he saw the floor completely flooded this morning, he thought he might have to move out. Fortunately, the books are fine. He finally finishes cleaning the floor, which now looks brand new, and thinks it's incredible how clean he managed to get it. He then prepares to open the shop, and while doing so, thinks about the cat, wondering whether it made it home safely, because it's dangerous for such a small cat to be out in weather like this. We then see Greg Morrison in Joseph's office, speaking obsessively about him, saying that he can feel Joseph's presence everywhere, and wondering if he's already in heaven. Claudia replies, "No, but if you keep acting like this, you'll be there soon." We now see Mr. Lin's neighbor completely furious because his television isn't working. He thinks the TV itself is fine, and the wiring seems fine too, so it's probably a blown fuse, but the circuit breaker is outside, and he doesn't want to go out in this heavy rain. Then he remembers that Mr. Lin is his neighbor, and maybe he could ask him for help. After all, he's a nice guy and always likes helping people. He knocks on the wall to get Mr. Lin's attention and thinks to himself that Mr. Lin might even thank him for giving him the chance to help. He then calls out, asking if Mr. Lin is there. Mr. Lin answers that he is and asks if he needs any help. The man smiles and tells Mr. Lin that his TV is having some issues, probably with the circuitry, but that he's busy right now and can't go outside. He asks Mr. Lin to go check it for him. The breaker is behind the back door of the shop, on the right-hand wall. Being the kind person he is, Mr. Lin says he'll take a look. But the moment he steps outside the shop, he feels an ominous presence around him. The demon he made a deal with to come to this world has returned for him. "Oh, it's nice to see you again after so long," Mr. Lin says. "Do you need something? Are you here to rush me into lending out more books?" The demon points toward the doors, and Mr. Lin asks if the demon really wants to help him. The demon nods. Mr. Lin thinks this demon is so polite and cute. Last time, it said lending books might help. Maybe now it wants to show its gratitude by actually helping him. That must be why it came back, Mr. Lin thinks. Because of that, he can't reject the demon's offer, so he says, "All right, I'll accept your help. Thank you very much." We then see the demon opening the door, stepping out into the heavy rain, locating the circuit breaker, and flipping the switch. We cut back to the neighbor's apartment, where the television suddenly turns on. He's shocked and delighted, shouting, "Great, thank you! I'll ask for your help again next time too, Mr. Lin." Mr. Lin replies, "You're welcome." As the demon returns to the bookstore, we now see the neighbor again, thinking how convenient it is to have Mr. Lin as a neighbor. He can just ask him to do things instead of doing them himself. He turns back to watching TV, only to be utterly horrified when he sees a terrifying demon on the screen. We don't see what the demon does to Mr. Lin's neighbor. We only hear agonized screams coming from his window. We return to Mr. Lin inside the bookstore, genuinely happy, thinking to himself, another day of doing a good deed. Just as he thinks this, the doorbell rings and someone starts entering the shop. He wonders, what's this? I do a good deed and a customer shows up right away. The customer turns out to be someone familiar, Old Wild himself. Excuse me, Mr. Lin, Wild says. Mr. Lin greets him and asks, so soon? He then thinks that compared to the mask Wild usually wears, his sense of fashion isn't that bad. He actually looks like an English knight. Mr. Lin asks if something urgent brought Wild out in such terrible weather. Wild replies that the favors Mr. Lin has done for him far outweigh this bad weather, and that he wants to properly express his gratitude this time. Mr. Lin says he's already quite satisfied with the last gift Wild gave him, asking what kind of precious item he brought today, suggesting that he might not accept it if it's too valuable. Old Wild thinks that Mr. Lin is being kind to him once again, and that the gargoyle is nothing compared to the gift he's about to present. Still, Mr. Lin remains modest and considerate of Old Wild's feelings. Because of your help, I'm only one step away from breaking through to the indescribable level, Old Wild thinks. And only this gift, something I've worked on for 2 full years, can truly show my gratitude for those 2 years. He reflects once more. To persuade Mr. Lin to accept the gift, Old Wild says, there's no need to hesitate. It's not that important to me, but it would serve you better. If you don't accept it, I'll feel terrible. Mr. Lin replies that Old Wild is exaggerating a little, and that he didn't actually help that much. I don't even know what you've prepared yet, so let me take a look first, Mr. Lin says. Old Wild tells Mr. Lin that he's been working on this gift for the past 2 years and hopes he'll like it. He then places the gift on the table. When Mr. Lin sees it, he asks if it's a dream catcher, thinking to himself, I didn't expect Old Wild to give me something this nostalgic. He recalls his past, back when he still lived on Earth, and how he once learned about dream catchers. They are a cultural symbol of Native Americans, who believe that the night air is filled with dreams, and that only a dream catcher can filter out nightmares while capturing pleasant dreams. The elder also explained to Mr. Lin that the entities within a dream catcher are formed from the strength and intelligence gathered from sleepers, and that they can strengthen communication between humans and spirits. Mr. Lin tells Old Wild that he didn't expect to see a dream catcher here. Old Wild praises him as very knowledgeable for recognizing it, then thinks to himself that while this dream catcher is a magical tool, what truly makes it special is the powerful dream contained within it. Mr. Lin realizes that the craftsmanship of this dream catcher is extremely high, meaning it was handmade. The recent storms have been ruining his sleep, making this the perfect gift at just the right time. He tells Old Wild that this is exactly what he needed and thanks him sincerely. Old Wild replies that it's an honor to present such a valuable gift to him. As Old Wild leaves the bookstore, he thinks to himself that the dream sealed within the dream catcher is a peerless, blissful dream, but it also carries terrifying danger. Without the will of an indescribable level being, it would instantly crush the soul. But for someone as powerful as Mr. Lin, it must be a rare pleasure and delight. Old Wild steps out of the bookstore and says, Sweet dreams. We see a massive explosion rip through a building, with Kay falling through the air. But before she hits the ground, chains wrap around her and pull her to safety. They're Max's chains. He's just saved her life. Max tells her to be careful in this battle, because he didn't expect their enemy to have mages fighting for them. We now see a mage chanting in a strange, arcane language, casting a spell from his staff to attack Miss G. She notices a massive serpent lunging at her, trying to devour her alive. Miss G leaps backward as the serpent pursues her, but suddenly, a white paw as large as the serpent's head slams down, stopping it cold. A massive white wolf tears the serpent in half. Stunned, the serpent begins coughing up blood and screams, How is this possible? How can she maintain control even while transformed? Helix never warned us about this. Another mage shouts that the wolf fears fire, so there's no need to panic. Just bring by powder and sulfate. But it's raining. The first mage responds. The second mage insists they can't delay any longer. She's terrified, so stopping her shouldn't be that hard. We see the terrifying white wolf howling beneath the moon. Kay watches, thinking that this is the power all hunters dream of, and that perhaps Miss G could lead the hunters into an entirely new world. Kay then thinks about Mr. Lin, wondering what kind of person he is to have helped Miss G obtain such power. She also wonders what his true goals might be. Max tells Kay not to worry about that right now. Their only duty is to follow through and share in the glory once the battle is won. Kay agrees, and the two charge back into the fight. We now see 3 mages casting a fire spell together, shouting, "Fire spells! Living flame!" Flames erupt from their staves and slam into the massive white wolf. Another building explodes nearby, and a huge black wolf rushes in to assist, while the mages redirect their fire spells toward it. We see Max and Kay take down one of the mages, followed by a massive fire explosion. Kay and Max shout, "Madam!" We now see 2 mysterious mages in the distance, commenting on the ongoing battle. One of them says in admiration that he never expected someone so powerful to exist in the Noken region, strong enough to maintain control even in beast form. He adds that not even Old Wild could manage something like this at the moment. He then asks the other mage if he's seen Old Wild, as reports say he was spotted on 23rd Street. The other mage replies that he hasn't seen him yet. The first mage instructs him to go search for Old Wild, since he is their master. As he gives these instructions, a massive wolf suddenly appears behind him. He spins around in shock, realizing he let his guard down completely, forgetting that this wolf possesses dimensional travel abilities. He also wonders how she managed to locate his coordinates and teleport directly to his position. He tries to dodge, but the white wolf is far too fast and manages to bite down on his arm. In excruciating pain, he looks to the second mage for help and screams his name in agony. Yuan strikes a powerful stance that allows him to cast even stronger spells and shouts, "Vertigo Flash!" The wolf thinks to herself that the language Yuan is using is incredibly refined and advanced, meaning the spell he's about to unleash must be extremely powerful and dangerous. Only a highly skilled dark mage could pull something like this off. While the white wolf is having these thoughts, the first mage grabs her paw in the blink of an eye, slams her into the ground, and quickly draws a dagger, intending to stab her and finish her off. But the wolf's eyes blaze as she roars, "Will of Steel!" With all her strength, she rips his arm off in a single motion. However, immediately afterward, the wolf sees a massive sphere of purple magic forming above her and looks up at Yuan, who is chanting, "Fire spell, son of decadence!" The wolf freezes in terror, realizing the spell is far too powerful and dangerous. She has to escape immediately. Even if her body twists and tears, this is her only chance to survive, and she successfully vanishes. We then see Yuan rush to the first mage and ask, "Lord Helix, are you alright?" Helix, his arm torn off, replies, "I'm fine." He then says that the owner of the bookstore on 23rd Street is even more powerful than they initially thought. We hear Helix's bones cracking as he casts a spell to regenerate his arm. Yuan asks if that's because she can teleport, but Helix says no. He means that she was able to extract giants from her soul, precisely locate their position, and dissolve their mental spells. Helix says he's far more interested in that kind of power. They're referring to the fact that the girl's wolf form is so powerful because of Mr. Lin's teachings, which is why they believe Mr. Lin is far stronger than originally expected. Helix then orders Yuan to go find Mr. Lin, saying that unfortunately, something else is more urgent right now. He adds that finding Mr. Lin is more important than finding Old Wild. Helix then summons a magical egg filled with dark matter and asks Yuan what he thinks will hatch from it. Yuan replies, "A dream beast." Helix answers, "No, not at all. It's a god." Then we return to the bookstore, where Mr. Lin is. We see him walking upstairs to his bedroom, thinking to himself that the rain has been pouring heavily for a long time, and who knows when it will stop. He says he'll go buy groceries once the weather clears up. He enters his bedroom and hangs Old Wild's dream catcher above his head. He thinks that this dream catcher is definitely a handcrafted piece, and even if it doesn't actually improve his sleep, it still looks exquisite, just like the gargoyle Old Wild gave him. Then Mr. Lin thinks that he should thank Old Wild the next time he visits. We see Mr. Lin getting into bed, settling in, and saying, "I hope this dream catcher works. Good night. Sweet dreams." As soon as he closes his eyes and falls asleep, the dream catcher activates and begins to glow. We see Mr. Lin inside his dream, and it is snowing. He thinks to himself, "Is this my dream? The snow feels like ash, and it isn't really cold. It even feels a little warm." Mr. Lin thinks this makes sense. After all, since he's dreaming, he hesitates for a moment when he sees the beautiful scenery in front of him. He sees a gigantic tree and thinks there's no way a tree like this could exist in real life. Its branches are twisted, its canopy covers the sky, and it looks as if its veins are intertwined with its skeleton. As he looks around, he notices a beautiful elven woman sleeping near the tree. She looks so peaceful and stunning. At that moment, a strange yet familiar melody echoes in Lin's heart. "I crown myself king of the sweet, cold north, with my carpet of needles and my crown of snow." We see the image of the elven lady with a crown upon her head. Mr. Lin murmurs that this is an incredible dream, like a beautiful fairy tale fantasy. He says that Old Wild wasn't exaggerating at all. He picks a flower with a delicate, fresh fragrance, and after smelling it, Mr. Lin thinks that no matter how he looks at it, this flower couldn't feel more real. He then thinks that he might be having a lucid dream, where the dreamer remains conscious, knows they are dreaming, and can control the dream, doing whatever they wish. Even sensations can feel just like real life. Mr. Lin thinks that the dream catcher must have given him a psychological suggestion, which, combined with Old Wild's words, led to this particular dream. He feels that this explanation is quite scientific, reasonable, and even poetic, making him feel surprisingly good. He then looks at the sleeping elven lady and thinks that if this is his dream, he can do whatever he wants with her, right? He stops himself, thinking there should be limits even in a dream. But he wonders if he's dreaming of such beauty, remembering that when we dream of other people, they're usually not this clear or familiar. He says that Chinese men like him often love women with silver hair, so that's probably why he's dreaming of her. At the end of the day, it's just a dream, nothing more. And in dreams, anything can happen. He walks closer to the sleeping elven lady, and after seeing her up close, he blushes slightly, thinking that this must definitely be a dream, because there's no such thing as perfect beauty in the real world. He realizes he can let himself go a little, since it's only a dream. He offers her the flower he picked earlier, and gently begins to stroke her hair. His face turns red from embarrassment, and he thinks that being this bold with women is really exciting, but it's no big deal, since this is just a dream. Just when he thinks she's still asleep, the elven lady opens her eyes, looks at Mr. Lin, and stands up. As she rises, Mr. Lin notices how tall she is, much taller than he expected. But in a dream, anything is possible, he thinks. She looks at him and asks, "Who are you?" Mr. Lin thinks to himself that she made the first move and asked his name first. He then realizes that dreams are usually created from one's subconscious, and this is his chance to talk to his own subconscious. Finally, he answers her question. A dreamer, you could say. She tells him that they are inside a dream, and of course, that makes him a dreamer. Mr. Lin thinks that she's aware they're in a dream, and how surprising this mysterious person is. He believes that this projection of his subconscious is truly fascinating, and that this is definitely his dream. He tells the elven lady that at least his answer is true, and now it's her turn to tell him who she is, but she can't say she's a dreamer too. The elven lady smiles and replies, "Silver. My name is Silver." He asks if she only has one name, wondering about her surname. She blinks and repeats one of his earlier lines. At least my answer is true. She steps a little closer, and Mr. Lin is surprised when she says, "Now it's my turn to ask you a question, right?" Mr. Lin thinks he didn't expect her to counterattack like that. He blushes and thinks this is bad. Her smile is deadly too. She then closes her eyes and tells Mr. Lin that she's been here for so long that she doesn't even know what time it is anymore. She says this place is beautiful, but far too quiet, so quiet that it feels deadly. She asks Mr. Lin if he can help her understand why she feels this way. Mr. Lin thinks to himself, isn't this just loneliness? Wait, can I expand my business even in a dream? He thinks this dream suits him perfectly. A romantic dream filled with beautiful flowers straight out of a fairy tale, guiding a beautiful and elegant lady with his soothing, soul-healing words. He thinks helping others is such a relaxing hobby that it's become addictive, so much so that he even dreams about his work. He recalls a saying that helping others always brings happiness. But then he thinks that for business, he can't be in pajamas. He needs his business suit. Suddenly, his suit appears on him. He realizes that since he's lucid dreaming, he can do anything, even turn imagination into reality. He says to Silver, "Why don't you take a seat?" as he offers her his hand. Silver is pleasantly surprised and reaches out to take his hand. What a soft, golden hand! Mr. Lin thinks as he blushes. Still, he knows he needs to resolve the situation first. He asks her if she's always been alone in this dream. She replies that no one has ever entered this place before, and that no one can. She tells him that he is the first person to ever come here. Mr. Lin thinks of Silver as Rapunzel, always living alone in this garden, with this life being an eternal rest. He thinks this dream feels like a fairy tale, and tells himself it's a pity that this is only a dream. Even if he understands her pain, he can never truly help her. He looks into Silver's eyes and tells her that what she's experiencing is loneliness, that she feels this way because she's never had anyone who truly understood her or talked with her. He tells her that there's nothing new in her life, only reflection, and that's what causes her pain. The more one thinks, the more painful it becomes. He says many people suffer from this same problem. She then says that reflection is the source of pain, that no one ever understood her because they feared her, and so they imprisoned her. Mr. Lin thinks to himself that she's even a philosopher, so he tells her an old saying, "Man plans and God laughs." He says that after seeing Silver's beauty, even God would smile. She blushes as Mr. Lin continues, saying that maybe reflection wouldn't hurt anymore if she remembered God while doing it. Silver blushes even more and tells him that he sounds like a romantic for thinking that way. Mr. Lin admits that he definitely is. He tells her there's a reason he's talking to her right now, and that he understands her. She replies that this is true. If he can appear in this dream, then he already understands her, and they are on the same level. She says that he's probably an even greater thinker than she is, making Mr. Lin blush as he wonders if this is how philosophers compliment each other. Mr. Lin tells her that since she approves of him, he has a favor to ask, and he hopes she'll accept it, because it's his most sincere wish. As he takes her hand, she is startled and blushes even more. He asks her if she will be his friend. She is shocked and left speechless. I mean, who wouldn't be? He just met the most beautiful girl in creation, and immediately put her in the friend category. Mr. Lin is a Chad. Now, back to the story. Mr. Lin thinks he needs to take the initiative, because isolated people like Silver might subconsciously reject others, so he needs to phrase it in a way she can't refuse. A friend? He asks again. Yes, a friend, he says. He explains that although this place is beautiful, it never changes, and she'll eventually grow bored of the same scenery. But if they're friends, they can share everyday stories that drive away boredom and make life more interesting. Mr. Lin's business instincts kick in, and even in a dream, he thinks about recommending books to people in need of soul healing. Using the power of imagination, he summons a book he believes would be perfect for Silver. He offers it to her, saying it's a gift from one friend to another. She tells him that she hasn't received gifts in a very long time, and that no one has talked to her. She says she has nothing but this tree, its fruits, flowers, and honey. She tells Mr. Lin he can take any of them he wants, as a gift from her to him. Looking up, Mr. Lin realizes the tree bears golden fruit, useless to him. But since it's a token of gratitude, he gladly accepts it. He asks Silver if he can eat the fruit, and she hands him a golden apple. Mr. Lin admires its beauty and takes a bite. Crisp and sweet, he thinks. And it doesn't even have seeds. It tastes similar to a normal apple. Silver asks if he likes it, and Mr. Lin says it's quite sweet. At that moment, reality begins to fracture around him. Does this mean I'm waking up? Mr. Lin thinks. It feels like he hasn't been there very long, but it's impossible to tell in a dream. He tells Silver that even though he doesn't want to leave, he has to go now. As the dream collapses around them, she rushes forward and hugs him. She gently bites his ear and tells him she hopes they'll meet again in this dream when night comes once more. And the dream shatters. Now we see a mage, Lord Helix, facing G, smoking a cigarette on a rain-soaked street. He thinks to himself that choosing Helix might have been a mistake, but it was still better than choosing the others. Betraying his master isn't a big deal. He's done it before. He betrayed his master and killed his master's students. A voice asks him what's so special about this mission that required him to handle it personally, despite his injuries. He replies that Miss G has become much stronger recently, and that even with both his strength and Helix's combined, they could barely hold her off. He recalls that Old Wild suffered a fatal injury, so he probably can't fight right now and is hiding somewhere to preserve his pride. The voice then tells him that Old Wild has reappeared and was spotted at a bookstore on 23rd Street. The mage comments that both Old Wild and Miss G were seen at that bookstore, so the bookstore must be connected to their sudden increase in power. He asks the voice if it remembers its mission, and it replies that its task is to investigate the bookstore and its owner, to see who he is and understand how powerful he truly is. The mage sends the mysterious individual off, saying he hopes they'll return with good news. He then thinks that Old Wild returning after growing stronger is deeply unsettling, and hopes the information is wrong. We now see the mysterious man arriving at the bookstore on 23rd Street. He enters and thinks it's strange. There's no magical reaction at all. We can also see that this man possesses shadow magic, allowing him to move as a shadow. He says that according to his senses, this is just an ordinary bookstore, and thinks that the higher-ups may have gotten the information wrong. As he passes by the gargoyle Old Wild gave to Mr. Lin, he continues his observation. When he decides to go up to the second floor, we see the gargoyle's eyes light up briefly, but then it falls back asleep, probably because it senses no killing intent, although we're still not entirely sure. He then arrives in front of the bedroom where Mr. Lin is currently sleeping and thinks to himself that he hasn't checked this place yet. He senses a living aura coming from the room, but it feels like that of an ordinary human, not a powerful mutant. He mutters that he was worried for nothing and that this mission is surprisingly simple. His master, Lord Yuan, was clearly overthinking things. After all, what kind of monster would run a shabby little bookstore? He thinks that since he's already here, he might as well deal with the bookstore owner, and then report back. He imagines the report, saying that he's been worrying about a normal person all this time, and that there's no need for concern. He's already taken care of it. How amusing that would be. But the moment he opens the door and looks into Mr. Lin's bedroom, he is utterly shocked and terrified. He sees Mr. Lin sleeping peacefully, surrounded by crimson, blood-soaked vines. The man is completely confused and has no idea what's happening, but he realizes immediately that this is some form of powerful magic. At that moment, the vines lash out at him and tear out one of his eyes. His eyeball falls to the floor, and as he desperately tries to escape the room, he barely manages to get out. After slamming the door shut, he begins to lose his mind, screaming, "Oh God! I should eliminate all threats to the Lord's existence. My Lord, your servant is here, eager to serve." We see his face soaked in tears, one eye missing, blood pouring from the empty socket. We return to Lord Yuan, who is thinking to himself that half an hour has already passed since the man left. Given his efficiency, this is taking far too long for a non-violent reconnaissance mission. Yuan begins to suspect that this bookstore truly isn't simple at all. Perhaps he should have sent someone else to investigate, but the situation still doesn't seem too bad. Even if something happened, Yuan shouldn't have trouble escaping with his abilities. Yuan thinks about Yuan, the man sent to spy on Mr. Lin, and his ability to turn into a shadow almost instantly, allowing him to move and maneuver freely. He can blend into other shadows and conceal his aura, making infiltration and escape extremely easy, even in dangerous situations. Yuan flicks his cigarette to the ground, thinking that if Yuan doesn't return soon, he may have to handle the mission himself. Suddenly, he notices a shadow. How can I still have a shadow? I already put out my cigarette. Yuan thinks. He immediately casts a fire spell, igniting his cigarette case and causing a violent burst of flames to light up the area, trying to reveal whatever is hiding in the shadows. He then realizes how bad this is for him. The heavy rain has greatly weakened his fire magic. He needs to retreat. He doesn't understand why Yuan would betray him, but right now, that doesn't matter. Yuan simply has to die. Yuan casts another fire spell that scorches the ground, and we see Yuan emerge from the shadows, attempting to ambush him. Yuan attacks with shadow explosion magic, striking Yuan directly on his already broken arm. Yuan is impaled against the wall. He screams in agony and lets out a tortured roar, triggering a massive fire explosion that erupts from his body. Despite his arm being completely shattered, he manages to break free. He sneers at Yuan, saying that he knows far more about betrayal than Yuan ever will, and asks if Yuan really thought Yuan wouldn't be prepared. How naive and foolish. Yuan engulfs Yuan in flames, declaring that it's over and trying to finish him once and for all. Afterward, we see Yuan's heart still beating on the ground. Yuan is stunned. He can't understand what's happening. He shouts, "What is this?" A powerful beast bursts forth from the heart and lunges at Yuan. Yuan screams, "You're not Yuan! Who are you?" The specter replies, "My lord, your servant will clear away all obstacles for you." The beast answers Yuan. Shocked, Yuan thinks, is Lord Yuan in some church? Could it be the bookstore owner? This is a warning. We now return to Lord Helix's headquarters, where he receives a report from one of his subordinates stating that Lord Yuan is dead. Helix is stunned and asks what happened. The subordinate explains the situation and says that there are photos included in the magical forensic analysis of the scene. He adds that the report came from the black mages of the Scarlet Cult. After seeing the photos, Helix is utterly shaken. The report states that Lord Yuan sent someone to investigate the bookstore on 23rd Street under Helix's orders. In the photos, Helix can see Yuan's mangled corpse, surrounded by the same crimson, blood-soaked vines that were wrapped around Mr. Lin while he slept. The report concludes that the person Yuan sent to investigate the bookstore betrayed him and killed him upon returning. One of the photos captures Yuan's final moments. Just before dying, he wrote the word, "run," in his own blood. Those were, essentially, his last words. Helix concludes that an unknown creature kidnapped and manipulated Yuan's mind, forcing him to betray and kill Yuan after returning. Even the black mages were unable to identify the creature responsible. Helix asks his subordinate what the black mages plan to do next. The subordinate explains that they are taking all the evidence back to the Scarlet Cult's headquarters for analysis. They will investigate what's really happening, but they also strongly suggested abandoning any further investigation of the bookstore in order to ensure the successful incubation of the magical mirror spawn inside the egg seen earlier. Helix agrees with the decision, stating that he will cooperate fully. After the subordinate leaves, Helix wonders whether this was a warning from the bookstore owner. He realizes the owner is far more powerful than they ever imagined, and far more brutal. Still, this is a critical moment for the egg's incubation. No complications can be allowed. No matter what kind of creature the bookstore owner is, the egg is on the verge of hatching, and Helix will not allow anything to interfere with his plans. We now return to Mr. Lin, who is finally waking up from his dream. He looks happy and thinks that he must thank Old Wild for giving him the dream catcher. It gave him the most beautiful dream he's ever had, resulting in the best night's sleep of his life. He remembers the elven lady, and hopes he'll be able to meet her again tonight when he falls asleep. As he goes to the bathroom to brush his teeth, he notices something isn't quite right. When he opens his mouth to check, he sees that he has 8 extra teeth. He thinks this must be the work of the demon who helped him come to this world, Inky, the name Mr. Lin gave the demon. Mr. Lin doesn't understand why Inky would do something like this. From a Buddhist perspective, having 40 teeth is considered a blessing. Buddha himself was said to have 40 teeth. Still, Mr. Lin decides he'll ask Inky about it the next time they meet. He opens his shop enthusiastically, hoping for new customers today. But then he realizes something is off. He doesn't hear the news playing next door. His neighbor usually blasts it at this time of day. Mr. Lin wonders why it's so quiet today. Did his neighbor get sick? Or maybe a fuse blew again? Mr. Lin decides to check on him and knocks on the wall, asking if everything is okay. The neighbor screams in terror. Confused, Mr. Lin asks if something is wrong. Still paralyzed with fear, the neighbor thinks to himself that in movies, characters who get exposed for doing something strange always die in the end. So he shouts back, "It's fine! I'm turning the TV on right now. I'm really sorry, I'm turning it on." As he switches on the television, we see a demon crawl out of the screen. We return to Mr. Lin, standing on the other side of the wall, listening to the news. He hears that an accident occurred today and thinks that this terrible weather has been causing accidents everywhere. Maybe he's worrying too much. Still, his neighbor sounds terrified, so Mr. Lin asks if he's alright and gently tells him that getting some rest would help him live a better life. Of course, another misunderstanding occurs. The neighbor takes this as a threat, thinking Mr. Lin is implying that if he doesn't obey, he'll die. The neighbor is so frightened that tears fill his eyes. He thinks he's still young and doesn't want to die. He believes Mr. Lin has realized that he was planning to contact a priest for an exorcism, and that sending the message now might not be a good idea. Mr. Lin calls out to him again. The neighbor panics so badly that he accidentally sends the message anyway and bursts into tears, believing his fate is sealed. Since the message has already been sent, there's no point in regretting it now. He prays that the priest of the domed church can exorcise the demon and save him. He replies to Mr. Lin while gasping, "I'm fine. There's no need to worry. Thank you for your concern." Mr. Lin answers, "All right, I'll leave you alone." But he still feels something is off. He thinks maybe he should buy his neighbor a gift to cheer him up. At that moment, the bell on the bookshelf rings. Mr. Lin puts on a cheerful smile, turns around and says, "Welcome!" He's happy to have a new customer today. The new customer turns out to be the daughter of Knight Joseph. Mr. Lin thinks to himself that he has a young, energetic new customer. Meanwhile, the girl wonders whether this is the bookstore mentioned in her father's documents. She looks at Mr. Lin with confusion as he asks if she needs anything. She glances around the shop, feeling slightly disappointed. Everything looks completely ordinary. She can't understand why this bookstore was classified as Class 1. Leaning against the counter, she asks if Mr. Lin is the owner. He confirms it and tells her that she's free to ask him anything, whether she wants to browse, borrow a book, buy one, or simply look around. She isn't impressed. She thinks her father must have made a mistake. She's even more disappointed, realizing she risked getting scolded by her father just to see a normal man running a normal bookstore. This isn't fun at all. Finally, she speaks up and asks Mr. Lin if she can really have anything she wants from the bookstore. Mr. Lin is slightly surprised and thinks kids these days are too spoiled. He tells her that as long as her request is reasonable, it's fine. But if it's excessive, then of course he can't agree. She slams her hand on the counter, looks at him provocatively, and says she wants to arm wrestle him, asking if that's too much. Mr. Lin is more shocked than ever. If I offered a normal person the chance to read, borrow, or buy books, would they really choose arm wrestling? He thinks. He doesn't understand the situation. It makes no sense. But his survival instincts tell him something is wrong. He notices that she cleaned her boots in the mud outside before entering, meaning she didn't track dirt inside. She has thick, beautiful red hair, suggesting she comes from a wealthy family. After observing her, Mr. Lin realizes she also seems disappointed, so she must have had some expectations when coming here, not just to escape the rain. All these thoughts only confuse him further. Why would a girl like her come to his bookstore and ask to arm wrestle him? His bookstore isn't popular at all, so why would a young woman like her enter it? Maybe one of his former customers recommended it. He tries to recall his past customers, searching for a connection between them and the girl. Then he notices her striking resemblance to Joseph. There's no doubt, she must be related to Joseph somehow. While Mr. Lin is lost in thought, the girl starts to feel uneasy and frightened, thinking, "What is this strange, intense pressure coming from him?" She asks what's wrong. "Arm wrestling isn't that unreasonable, is it?" Mr. Lin realizes he's been staring at her for too long and may have made her uncomfortable. He quickly says, "No, arm wrestling isn't a problem, but I want to ask you a few questions first." She asks what questions. His first one is, "Are you here because of Joseph?" She completely loses her composure, panics, and shouts, "How did you know?" Mr. Lin feels a bit relieved, thinking he guessed right. He pours her some tea and tells her they look quite alike. Now flustered and irritated, she snaps back, upset about being compared to her father, and asks Mr. Lin how she looks anything like him. After seeing her reaction and attitude, Mr. Lin realizes that Joseph and the girl must be father and daughter. He then asks why she wants to arm wrestle him. She explains that her father told her that if something is bothering her, and she can't resolve it due to various restrictions, she should find someone to arm wrestle. Mr. Lin, slightly disappointed, asks why arm wrestling specifically. She explains that her father said this kind of game makes the opponent look weak if they refuse, and even if they do refuse, you can still force them into it, and you'll also have a reason to hit them if they get angry or make a move. Mr. Lin is both intrigued and disappointed, thinking to himself, "Is this really how Joseph raises his children?" He then reflects that this really is a military mindset, and that he shouldn't expect a retired soldier with PTSD to behave any differently. So he agrees to arm wrestle her and asks about the rules. She tells him that whoever wins 2 rounds first wins the match. Mr. Lin then realizes that the girl must have had an argument with Joseph and is looking for an outlet for her frustration, and that outlet happens to be him. He grows annoyed and retracts his earlier praise about her good manners. He decides that this kind of behavior needs to be corrected, and mentally apologizes to Joseph, saying that he won't hold back against his daughter, for her own good. When they clasp hands, the girl thinks that his strength feels like that of a normal adult man. She thinks, "Is this guy really class 1? Aside from her father, she's never felt resistance in arm wrestling, so she decides to go easy on this ordinary man to avoid accidentally breaking his arm. A countdown begins. 3, 2, 1. The moment 1 is called, Mr. Lin slams her hand flat onto the table. She is completely stunned, unable to understand what just happened, and shouts, "How is this possible?" She still can't comprehend how she lost an arm wrestling match to a man of average strength. As she stares at Mr. Lin, she sees him looking proud, thinking to himself that he's actually quite good at arm wrestling. Meanwhile, the girl thinks that with her strength, she could have beaten 10 people when she was only 6 years old. She still doesn't understand how she lost. Noticing her confusion, Mr. Lin compliments her strength. He says that for someone so young, she's incredibly strong. Then he adds, "At the start, we were evenly matched for a while, weren't we?" That completely enrages her. She thinks, it didn't take him any effort at all. He won so easily, and now he's being sarcastic. This guy is awful. But Mr. Lin is genuinely confused. He was sincerely trying to apologize. Determined to protect her dignity as a knight, she yells at him, "The real winner is whoever wins twice. This time, I'll definitely win." Her face twists with fury, nearly monstrous in its rage. Mr. Lin, now a little frightened, wonders what's going on with this girl. Is this really still arm wrestling, or is she about to eat me alive? Still, he nervously accepts. They clasp hands again and begin the countdown. 3, 2, 1. She uses all her strength. Her face tightens, and the muscles in her arm tremble violently. On the other hand, Mr. Lin casually wonders who will win. Watching such a delicate girl struggle is oddly charming. Then, with the most effortless and relaxed expression, Mr. Lin slams her hand down again. She bursts into tears, sobbing uncontrollably. Mr. Lin, completely bewildered, tells her that it's not a big deal. It was just arm wrestling. Is winning really that important? She's stunned by his words. Mr. Lin taps her on the forehead and adds, if this were a knife fight, you'd already be dead. You need to choose your battles wisely. Her tears flow even harder as she calls him mean. Mr. Lin reflects that he needs to humble her now, or she'll grow up causing trouble for herself and others. Believing he's doing the right thing, he says, I've fulfilled your request. Now can you tell me why you came to the bookstore? With a sad expression, she replies that she came to borrow a book. Mr. Lin's eyes light up like dollar signs, and he says, why didn't you say so earlier? What book do you want to borrow? She explains that she wanted to finish reading a book her father had borrowed, but he interrupted her before she could finish it. She's afraid to read it in front of him. Internally, she regrets challenging Mr. Lin to arm wrestling, worrying that he might refuse to lend her the book now. Mr. Lin suspects that she may be afraid of her father, judging by how she talks about him, and realizes the book is probably connected to their recent conflict. I have the book, he says. But why don't you talk to Joseph first? She shakes her head. She says that if Joseph knew she was reading it, he'd be furious. That's why she can't ask him. Mr. Lin disagrees, saying that if she approached him calmly and sincerely, he probably wouldn't get angry just because she wanted to read a book. With a trembling voice, on the verge of tears, she replies, my father never understands me. Whenever I do well in training, he scolds me, saying it's not good enough and that I need to improve. He always compares me to himself at my age. No matter how hard I try, I never earn his approval. Mr. Lin thinks the real issue might be her academic performance. He says, I'll give you some books that will help you impress your father once you've studied them. He speculates that Joseph, a workaholic father, neglected his daughter's education, causing her grades to suffer. And as a retired soldier, Joseph doesn't know how to express concern properly, resorting instead to harsh, military-style criticism. But from the daughter's perspective, it feels like endless condemnation. Mr. Lin sympathizes, thinking that being a parent is difficult, but he knows exactly which books are perfect for this situation. As the saying goes, when a child misbehaves, it's usually because they're not studying enough. Mr. Lin begins stacking books on the table, books he believes will be useful for her. He slams 4 of them down as she asks, what are those? These are for impressing Joseph, Mr. Lin replies. She looks at them skeptically, thinking that impressing her father is impossible. After all, she's trained her entire life and never received a single compliment. Everyone expects greatness from her simply because she's Joseph's daughter. A sad expression crosses her face as she remembers how Joseph always says that at her age, he was already operating at a critical level. Seeing her dejected, Mr. Lin explains, no matter what, your father just wants to see you grow. As long as you live honorably, he'll be proud of you, even if he never says it. She feels confused. Why does he act like he knows my father so well? Then she asks, if I study these books, will I really become stronger and manage to impress my father? Curious, she wonders what kind of books they are. Muscle-building techniques? Secret mana skills? Mr. Lin misunderstands, assuming she means intellectual power rather than physical strength. He says, if you want power, as long as you endure the hardship and pain of studying, these books will open the door to it. What she doesn't know is that although the books Mr. Lin recommends appear ordinary in this world, those who receive them often discover supernatural qualities meant to strengthen their very souls. She picks up one of the books, titled Origins of the Void Key. Instantly, she feels an overwhelming power radiating from it. Curious but hesitant, she opens the book. Suddenly, she finds herself standing before a massive magical gate. Shocked, she pushes it open, and as it creaks, she begins to float. Her body starts to fade, dissolving into the air itself. Mr. Lin's words echo in her mind. You must endure pain if you wish to unlock true power. The world around her begins to collapse and reconstruct itself. Terrified, she snaps the book shut. Lightning flashes outside, and she's drenched in cold sweat. She wonders, did I just die and come back to life? As she gathers herself, she realizes that something deep within her has changed. The very essence of her soul has been altered. Now flow through her, and she begins to wonder whether this void key is some kind of master key capable of opening any door. As a knight, she feels that this power could help her reach unparalleled heights, breaking through every barrier in her path. She wonders if this is the legendary, indescribable level of strength. Never in her wildest dreams did she imagine such power could exist. It seems Mr. Lin casually rewrote her very essence. Fear floods her mind as she thinks, this man must be a demon in human form. While these thoughts race through her head, Mr. Lin remains calm, unaware of her inner turmoil. Sensing her unease, he says, "If you have any questions, feel free to ask." She misinterprets his words, thinking he's offering some kind of demonic assistance that would bring her even more suffering. Still frightened, she hears Mr. Lin continue, "You're a very talented child, and I believe you deserve a better future." Terrified, she struggles with the idea that if she continues down this path, she may never be the same person again. But Mr. Lin gently encourages her. "If you work hard, you'll gain the power to change everything, even to make your father proud." She lets out a relieved sigh, feeling trapped yet knowing she has no other choice. Accepting her fate, she thanks Mr. Lin for the books and apologizes for her earlier behavior. Mr. Lin waves it off, saying, "It's no problem at all. That attitude of yours is good. Being humble and curious will help you gain even more knowledge." She buys the books and leaves the bookstore, then suddenly stops, confused. "Wait, wasn't I supposed to borrow the books, not buy them?" She shakes her head. "It doesn't matter. I need to get home and start studying immediately." Meanwhile, in a separate dimension, we see Miss G drifting through an interdimensional void, struggling to escape. She thinks to herself, "This is far too dangerous. I need to get out of here fast." Suddenly, she regains consciousness with a cry of pain. She remembers fighting Helix and Yuan, barely managing to escape their attacks. Teleporting twice in a row should have torn her body apart, yet somehow, she remains intact. Looking around, Miss G realizes she has no idea where she is, or where her companions are. Panic begins to set in. Just then, another girl enters the room and says, "You're badly injured. Stay still." When Miss G looks closely at the woman, she realizes she's an elf. A flicker of confusion crosses Miss G's face as she wonders what an elf is doing in the Noken region at a time like this. Intrigued but cautious, she asks, "What happened here?" The elf replies in a calm yet firm voice, "I saved you. I recently moved to Noken, but it's been torture because of all the mana fluctuations. Elves are especially sensitive to those disturbances. It's been constant agony." Miss G listens carefully, intrigued by the explanation. The elf continues, "That wasn't even the strangest part. While I was walking home, I found you unconscious and wounded. You appeared right in front of me. I thought someone might be hunting you, so I brought you to my home to help." She pauses, her gaze sharpening. "I live nearby, and I knew whoever was chasing you might come after me as well, so I covered our tracks thoroughly. Elves are natural hunters, after all. Don't worry, no one will find us here." Now more relaxed, Miss G nods gratefully and asks, "How long was I unconscious?" The elf replies, "About 5 hours since I brought you here. But judging by your wounds and how fresh the blood was, you were unconscious for at least an hour before I found you." Miss G lets out a quiet sigh of relief, thinking how lucky she was to survive that last teleport. Teleporting while exhausted is extremely dangerous. She could have died. But no, it wasn't just luck. She realizes it was thanks to Mr. Lin. "He made me stronger, both mentally and physically," she reflects. Meanwhile, back in his bookstore, Mr. Lin sneezes, completely unaware of Miss G's gratitude. Miss G shifts slightly, still wincing from her injuries. Although they've healed, her body needs time to fully recover. Her thoughts return to the unfinished battle with Helix. "Once I recover, I'll have to finish what I started," she thinks. But before that, she knows she needs to learn more about this elf. The elf interrupts her thoughts with a gentle compliment. "Your healing abilities are remarkable. You must be an exceptional hunter." Miss G smiles faintly. "Thank you. But tell me, what is an elf like you doing in the Noken region? There aren't many elves here." The elf straightens slightly, pride evident on her face. "My name is Doris," she says. "I come from the Iris family, an ancient and sacred bloodline from the Azir region. I came to Noken in search of my family's lost glory." Miss G's eyes widen in surprise. She recalls stories she read as a child about the Iris family, one of the most revered elven clans in all the lands. Legend said their kingdom fell when King Candela went mad. Some of the surviving elves were rumored to have made a pact with a mysterious witch, gaining spirit beasts and immense power in exchange. According to the pact, they could call upon the witch on the first night of May whenever they needed her aid. Curious, Miss G interrupts. "Wait, are you here looking for that witch?" Doris nods, explaining that the witch is an ancient mystery. No one has ever seen her true face. Legends say she resides in a dream world covered in snow, surrounded by white lilies, beneath a colossal tree made from the bones of an ancient dragon. As Doris speaks, Miss G begins to connect the dots. Silver, the woman from Mr. Lin's dreams. Someone no one truly knew, whom many believed to be nothing more than a myth. Miss G never imagined those legends might be real. But now, they seem disturbingly plausible. There's no way that witch lives here in Noken, Miss G says, shaking her head. The Society of Truth has magical surveillance across the entire region. They would have detected her presence. Doris shrugs. I don't understand it either. But the great sage prophesied that Lady Silver, the one who commands the snow, would descend from the dream world to the steel city, Noken, to watch over those favored by the stars. A chill runs down Miss G's spine at the name Silver. Could all of this be connected to Mr. Lin? She suppresses her thoughts and asks how long Doris plans to stay in Noken. It's dangerous for an elf to live here. She should know that something is wrong with this place. Doris smiles softly and asks if she means the strange rain. She gestures toward the window, where droplets pound against the glass. I've noticed it, but it's not a big deal. Miss G shakes her head. No, that's not what I mean. She thinks of the real danger, the spawn of the magic mirror, creatures capable of manipulating minds and creating dream beasts, but decides not to tell Doris yet. For now, you should keep a low profile, she advises. It's dangerous out there. Doris looks at her curiously, her eyes shimmering. Why are you warning me? Miss G straightens, her gaze hardening as she explains. I'm a hunter who specializes in tracking and eliminating dream beasts. It's my duty to protect innocent people from their influence. Doris's eyes light up with excitement. You remind me of my predecessors. That's exactly what being a hunter is about. The enthusiasm in Doris's voice is contagious, and Miss G feels a spark of camaraderie. Maybe Doris is a hunter too, she thinks. But before they can explore that thought further, a strong burning smell wafts in from the kitchen. Both girls turn their heads as Doris exclaims, my soup is burning! Doris rushes into the kitchen, where smoke pours from a pot on the stove. Miss G chuckles softly as she watches Doris scramble to fix the situation. After a frantic few moments, Doris returns with a steaming bowl of fresh lamb soup, a shy smile on her face. Try it. I hope it's still good, she says. Miss G takes a cautious sip and feels warmth spread through her body. Rich flavors dance across her tongue, and before she realizes it, she's devoured the entire bowl. With her appetite reignited after everything she's endured, she exclaims, This is delicious! Her eyes widen in surprise. Doris beams at the compliment, then asks, Do you think you could help me find Silver? Any clue would be invaluable. Miss G nods, but her expression grows serious. I'd love to help, but the situation I'm in is extremely dangerous. I can't offer much assistance right now. She pauses, thinking. You should visit someone named Mr. Lin. He runs a bookstore on 23rd Street. He can definitely give you the answers you're looking for. Doris tilts her head curiously. Mr. Lin? Who is he? Miss G explains that he's an incredibly powerful individual, that she's sworn her loyalty to him, and that his power is indescribable. Just speaking of him makes her heart burn with warmth. Doris frowns. But if he's that powerful, why isn't he on Noken's mutant registry? That list includes every mutant living here. Miss G understands her concern but reassures her. You have to trust me on this. I'm speaking from personal experience. He's the reason I've grown stronger. At that moment, Mr. Lin is once again in his bookstore, unaware that someone is talking about him. Doris admires Miss G's unwavering faith. I believe you. Your strength speaks for itself. You're extraordinary. Miss G blushes slightly at the praise. Mr. Lin gave me all of this, she says, lifting her shirt to reveal her flawless skin. Doris gasps, eyes wide. You should have had scars after what you went through. Not at all. Miss G replies with a small smile. His power is incredible. Healing me was effortless for him. Doris nods in understanding, her interest in Mr. Lin deepening. I'll definitely visit that bookstore once the rain stops and learn more about him. As Miss G heads toward the bathroom, she thinks about contacting her companions, but also realizes she needs rest to recover her strength. Warm water envelopes her, and she finds herself reflecting on Doris's kindness. Meanwhile, Doris remains alone in the kitchen. Her expression shifts into something far more ominous. She thinks to herself, other than the original witches, no one is omniscient. Anyone who claims to be is lying. If their lack of ability leads to disappointment and retaliation, that's their problem. The scene darkens, revealing the mutilated bodies of a man and a goat in Doris's basement. Doris's voice echoes coldly, All right, time to take care of the kitchen scraps. It's revealed that the soup Miss G just enjoyed wasn't made from fresh lamb, but from that horrifying scene. The tension thickens as we return to Helix. He paces back and forth in fury, his voice sharp as he interrogates his subordinate about a missing spy. What do you mean Hound Barker is missing? The subordinate trembles under Helix's ferocious glare and answers. We've confirmed he's gone, but all traces have been completely erased. Even magical forensics can't determine what happened. Helix's face darkens as he grabs the subordinate by the throat, lifting him off the ground. What do you mean you don't know? The subordinate stammers. It's serious. We have no leads. Helix throws him aside, his voice booming with authority. Continue the investigation. I don't care how many of our people die. Find her. Suddenly, his tone shifts. And Charles, how is he? The subordinate answers with relief. Yes. Charles has awakened. Yuan preserved his body perfectly, and Priest Murphy revived him, even altering his memories to align with our cause. A sinister smile spreads across Helix's face. Finally, some good news. He recalls Rat Ryan's report, Charles being Old Wild's favorite disciple. Information that could tip the scales in his favor. How will Old Wild react when he sees his student resurrected, ready to kill him because of those altered memories? Helix steadies himself, ambition burning in his eyes as he contemplates the immense energy required to incubate the magic mirror spawn. In a different realm, a man named Wild crosses the snow-covered mountains, his magic scepter gleaming against the harsh landscape. He approaches the colossal skeleton of a dragon, its presence overwhelming against the pristine white surroundings. With a voice filled with determination, Wild calls out, "My master, the oldest king of words, the Black Emperor, the speaking dragon, the last descendant of the giants, the giant king, Slater Augustus. My name is Wild, and I have come to request an audience with you. Please bless this disciple with power, and bear witness to my great work." To his surprise, a voice echoes through the air. "There is no need to use magic, my pupil. The living fossil has yet to decay." Suddenly, an immense purple energy engulfs the area as a gigantic hand materializes, crashing down beside Wild and striking the dragon's skull. The air crackles with power as the giant mage king emerges. He greets the young Wild and, with curiosity shining in his eyes, asks, "Why have you summoned me?" With a flick of his wrist, Wild conjures a gargoyle, a token of his efforts. "I wanted you to take a look at this," he says proudly. The giant mage king examines the gargoyle, scanning it with his magical eye. With a tone of fascination, he says, "Impressive work, young Wild. This is nearly perfect." With an elegant gesture, the giant mage king declares, "At this moment, your journey is complete. You have graduated." Joy floods Wild as he realizes the significance of this moment. "Thank you. This is a great honor," he exclaims, filled with pride. The giant mage king's tone turns serious as he offers a warning. "Do not forget your destiny." He wishes Wild good fortune and departs, leaving the young mage to bask in the glow of his newfound independence. In the present, Old Wild recalls this defining moment. He furrows his brow, remembering how, in his excitement, he failed to grasp the weight of the giant mage king's words. "Arrogance," he murmurs, the bitter taste of regret lingering in his mouth. It was that very arrogance that set off a chain of disastrous events. His mind drifts to another significant memory, his visit to an orphanage, where he had come to adopt a child. The caretaker thanks him warmly, but Old Wild's gaze settles on a lonely, sorrowful boy sitting in the corner. The child bears a striking resemblance to Levi from Attack on Titan, with a slender frame and downcast eyes. Intrigued, Old Wild asks for the boy's name. The caretaker explains that the child arrived recently, and has yet to find a purpose. Old Wild approaches the boy, kneeling to meet him at eye level. "Hello, I am Old Wild, a black mage." He introduces himself. With a gentle yet firm tone, he says, "You have two choices. Stay here and die, or come with me." The caretaker's eyes widen in shock, while the boy begins to tremble and cry. "I don't want to die. Please take me with you," he begs. Moved by the child's desperation, Old Wild wraps him in his cloak as a gesture of protection. "From today onward, you will be my disciple. Your name will be Charles." Confusion flickers across Charles's face, quickly giving way to joy. "All right, master," he replies, smiling through his tears. As Old Wild reflects on their bond, he recalls that black mages passed down their knowledge through language. The bond between master and disciple often surpasses that of a family. Later, he took on another disciple named Yuan, confident in his ability to protect them both, backed by his immense power. But then, the dark memories return. Charles's tragic death. Old Wild remembers the horror of finding only Charles's right arm, with the rest of his body nowhere to be found. Consumed by rage, he hunted down every black mage responsible for Charles's death. Yet he never recovered Charles's body or soul. It felt as though he had lost Charles forever. Suddenly jolted from his thoughts, Old Wild gasps, realizing how unusual it is for him to dream of both his master and his disciple. His thoughts race as he wonders whether the giant Mage King had foreseen that he would receive help from Mr. Lin, and be gifted the gargoyle statue. A sharp pang of regret settles in his chest. He wishes he had possessed the wisdom to save Charles. But perhaps, just perhaps, Charles is still alive somewhere, slipping through the cracks of the dream world. I can't cling to the past, Old Wild thinks. It's pathetic. A miracle isn't going to happen. At that very moment, someone knocks on Old Wild's door, startling him. He asks who is there, realizing that no one but him and Charles knows of this hideout. Outside, beneath the rain, a boy in a robe shouts, "Master, it's me! I'm back! It's me, Charles! Are you there?" Charles explains that the black mage who tried to kill him threw him into a crack in the dream world, but the fissure wasn't very deep. "I just managed to escape," he continues, urgency filling his voice. "Are you not there? I'm waiting for you, just like when you came back for me at the orphanage. I don't want to die. Please take me with you, Master." As he finishes speaking, Charles collapses. Old Wild opens the door, frozen in disbelief as he stares at the boy and cries out, "Charles!" Now, don't forget to subscribe for part 2, and thanks for watching.